All right, I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Solvang City Council, Wednesday, September 25th, 6:30 p.m. Can I get a roll call?
Councilmember Dearness,
Yeah.
Johnson,
Here.
Wade. Here. Mayor Toussaint,
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
And Robert will be joining us late. Pledge allegiance. Okay.
All right, please join me in the pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have one item on the agenda for tonight. That is the Yule Fest Event Management Services RFPs and proposals. Could we get a staff report?
Today's meeting is all about the Yule Fest. Staff had issued an RFP and received 3 responses. So today's process we'll start with a staff report from our PIO, Katie Fleckenstein, who has facilitated this process with me. We will then turn it over to the proposals and give them an opportunity to present their proposal. It's important to mention that the RFP was created in a way to allow for creativity for the proposals to propose different events. So when you're looking at costs for those proposals and the different events, it's really not all apples to apples and oranges to oranges. So staff has also prepared an additional memorandum that is in front of you today, sort of outlining what are those differences in the proposals, and those are also available for the public at the front table over here if they would like to take a look. Once we have the presentations, council can ask any questions of the proposals as well as of the staff. Ultimately, our recommendation for tonight would be to select a vendor to hold Yule Fest, as well as authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with a vendor. With that, I will turn it over to Katie for staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Toussaint, council members. So as the city manager mentioned, the applicants for the Yule Fest RFP only had about a week to submit their proposal. So you'll notice that there are sections that are a little bit more vague. And I believe all 3 applicants tried their best to address every possible element of an RFP, from budget to event services to management services. So the RFP was submitted on September 12th, and last Friday at noon was the deadline. We received 3 applications from Pink Cadillac Entertainment, IDK Events, and Daniel Lair. So IDK Events is a team based out of San Francisco and Fresno, and they have a team with over 20 years of experience. They've produced quite a few parades and festivals. Pink Cadillac Entertainment are a firm of event producers located throughout the United States, as well as here in Santa Barbara County, so both local and national. And they have extensive experience hosting parades, municipal events, and large-scale productions. And third, we have Daniel Lair. He is currently the Special Programs Manager at the Solvang Conference and Visitors Bureau, and he's been there for the last 2 years and was tasked with planning and producing Yule Fest. Daniel has had event experience, including working for the Queen Mary in Long Beach, doing winter and Christmas-themed events. So the other piece of information that is helpful to know is the Chamber of Commerce has expressed interest in hosting the Yule Fest tree lighting, and the Chamber of Commerce could work with the chosen event planner on producing that event. And then we also have the memorandum, and we created this because if you're looking through the applications, the proposals, and comparing it with the RFP, that's a lot of bit of back and forth to look through all of them. So we tried to base it off of each topic. So the event scope, which you will notice that the scope is quite a bit different between all 3 of these proposals. So there are some core events that we had in the RFP, and those are listed here in the memorandum. They range from the Yule Fest Parade to the tree lighting to Santa's Village. And then we encouraged applicants to submit additional events and really think outside of the box and get creative. So you'll find that list comparing each of the applicants and what additional events they're proposing. So as you look at the budget, keep in mind they all include a different number of events as well as scope of events. So you might have the same event that's produced differently for all three. We then outlined the experience, which I mentioned earlier for all three applicants. Staffing and event management services, so they all vary in how many staff are included in the proposal. And then the other thing we wanted to point out is with public relations, we were considering hiring a public relations contractor to start publicizing YuleFest because, if you know much about public relations, a lot of times you have to get started quite a bit in advance in order to get into magazines and print. So we spoke to Stiletto Marketing, which is actually owned by Anna Ferguson Sparks, and she has previously done the PR for YuleFest in the past. So she's very comfortable with YuleFest and is actually able to start immediately. She just finished Danish Days PR. So we have included a quote attached to this for reference. This would be outside of the current proposal, as well as any in-depth marketing, which we've outlined below. So you'll notice that each proposal includes a different amount of marketing included. Some of them gave specific amounts and broke it down. Others said it really depends on what the final scope of services ends up looking like. Then we have revenue. So the revenue also varies, with IDK taking a commission off of ticket revenue as well as sponsorship revenue. And they did not list an estimated revenue. Pink Cadillac also did not list an estimated revenue, I would imagine for both of them because, again, looking for direction from the council. And they did list their events that could produce revenue. So also looking at how many events can actually produce revenue will give you a good idea of what that revenue might look like. And then third, we've got Daniel Lair. So he actually estimated the revenue at $25,000 for the beer, wine walk, and the candlelight tours. And then lastly, we went through insurance requirements for all three of them. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Are there any questions of the staff report?
Yes. Can you go over the marketing section again?
Sure. So marketing services were not requested in the RFP. However, two of the applicants did include marketing in there. The first one is IDK Events. They included $1,500 in social media advertising, and Daniel Lair included $3,000, which includes $2,000 for unspecified advertising, $500 for local newspaper ads, and $500 for social media marketing. Pink Cadillac was aware, all three of them were aware of the city wanting to hire an outside contractor for public relations. And so there was a bit of miscommunication with Pink Cadillac as they thought she included social media marketing. So they submitted an addendum and they said that they can definitely produce social media marketing services, however, would need to provide a quote for that based on the scope of the entire event.
Thank you.
One of the questions I had was if the council desires something not within the event coordinator's scope of work, what is the process for expanding that scope of work?
That can be done tonight with direction from the council, or the council can choose the event coordinator that they deem the most appropriate for YuleFest, and then have that contractor come back to the council with additional suggestions.
Got it. And have you checked references and what was the feedback?
Yes, actually I did check references, and I did call last minute, so I wasn't able to get a hold of everybody. But I did call IDK Events references. Two were unavailable. One of them was moving. And then one I spoke to in the city of San Francisco spoke unbelievably highly of IDK. It was a terrific reference. He said they are the best, and they do the Pride Festival in San Francisco, which is one of the top 4 largest events in the city. So he expressed how great they are with materials, like planning materials, setting up in the shortest amount of time, and then breaking down as well. He also said that they were great with security and crowd control. And then Pink Cadillac Entertainment, there are 3 event planners that work under Pink Cadillac as leads. So there are 3 leads, Kevin, Warner, and Ellie. I actually know Warner, so I did not call his reference because I have worked with him before, and I've had an excellent experience with him. The first one, Kevin, who's the main lead for Pink Cadillac, I had not met before. I called his reference, who was Greg, the former mayor of Carpinteria and currently on the city council there, and very much involved with the Avocado Festival. And he spoke extremely highly of Kevin as well as Warner. He's worked with both of them on multiple events. He said they handle crowd control, security very, very well, great at planning and managing large staff for those large-scale events. I also called the Santa Barbara City administrator, someone who works in the administrator's office, who knows Ellie. That's the local event planner that would be working for Pink Cadillac. And she said she's extremely organized, has done a terrific job on all of the Santa Barbara events. And I believe all of them have worked on Solstice and Earth Day, Avocado Festival, a lot of the Santa Barbara events that are down there, the big ones they've worked on. Daniel Lair, I actually received references prior to even having the RFP sent out for Daniel, but I did speak with Shelby Sim, and I believe he's going to try to attend later today to speak, and he said that he and his team at Visit San Ynez Valley cannot speak more highly for Daniel. They love him, he does a great job, and they believe if he was given the authority to manage an event that he could take it to new heights.
My last question is, of the three proposals here, do they all meet the minimum required events, right?
Correct. They all meet the core events that we listed as required.
Perfect. Are there any other questions of the staff report? Okay. So I think the next thing to do would be to start the presentation time. I guess we could do public comment from, trying to think when it would be best to do public comment. We could do it after presentations, or so after presentations. Okay.
Yeah, I would.
So what I'd like to do is ask each person, each one of the vendors participating, to leave the room, and then we'll start with the first vendor, and then move on to the next. That way, everyone has a fair shot at answering questions and presenting.
I just have a question. What's the real purpose of having them, not having the other vendors in here to?
Well, if you're asking questions, then you're giving anyone after that has now had time to listen to their response, to hear the question, better prepare their response. So it's not really, you wouldn't do that in a normal interview. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is that?
It's actually the most normal way to do it.
It'd be the most fair way.
Well, okay, so that's not something that would be the most fair way, and it's not something that we should have voted on to do it that way?
If you oppose it, then you could ask that we take a vote on it.
I don't necessarily oppose it, I just want to
Okay.
make sure that we're.
No, I'm just saying this because I think it's the most fair way to do it. It wouldn't be fair to other candidates to be the first one, and for the other candidates to be able to listen to the first
Like when
and the
we did
second.
our appointment and they put us on.
Oh, no, I understand it, I usually just ask my questions because I want the general public to know why we're doing.
The general public's going to hear all your questions. Yeah.
So my answer would be that this is entirely within the purview of the mayor as the person running the meeting. And so if the council, though, does not agree with that, you could make a motion to do something else and seek a second and do something else. So the mayor, as the chairperson of the meeting, has the prerogative to set it in a particular way, but if the council doesn't agree, you can overrule that.
No, I am in favor of this, I just wanted to make sure the general public understands why we're doing it this way.
Okay. It's the same way we did the city council appointment, and same way we do hirings. So with that, we will start with, I believe, is it IDK for?
First is
I'm
Pink
sorry.
Cadillac.
Pink
That
Cadillac.
would be a
Okay, because
Skype
they're
interview.
yeah.
This is Kevin Rock.
And just so you understand, we're doing Pink Cadillac first because they're Skype only, which means they could watch anyway.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi there.
Hi, it's Katie and the council.
Hi, Katie and the
I was
council.
going to try to see if I could move him to see you.
Oh, let's see.
Can I do that?
Yes, this is
let me see if I can show you the council. Oh, no, it'd have to be this way. There we go. Kevin, meet the council, City Council of Solvang.
Hi, Kevin.
Hello, Kevin.
Howdy, I understand that I'm up on the wall or something like that, so it's a little scary. But
Yeah, you're in two places. You're right in front of us, and then on the wall. So.
Well, good evening, Mayor and City Council. Just thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening through technology. And actually thank you to Katie and Patrick for their assistance in setting this up. I appreciate it. So I'm out of town at the moment, obviously for some events this weekend, but I'll be back next weekend for the Avocado Festival, to which you are all invited. We were planning another great one, and if you like avocados, we do everything avocado in that, so come on down. But to Yulefest, my team and I are excited about this opportunity for a number of reasons that I want to touch on in these next few minutes. One of the strengths that we know that we bring to you is our whole team is involved throughout the year in the area, in Carpinteria and Santa Barbara and San Ynez and so forth, in a lot of different events, from Earth Day to Solstice, Rods and Roses, Avocado Festival, corporate events and things like that. And what we know that brings is vendor relationships that we can leverage. We know who's the best as far as service and pricing and things like that, that we know that can be really helpful with the multitude of different events that are involved with this. Our team is close for when we need assistance and added help. They're just going to be driving up and so forth like that. We're also available we expect there to be a lot of meetings and connections and things like that to happen. So as we looked at this, we understand you're already established as one of the most Christmassy towns in America. And so you're looking for somebody to come alongside to bring, our expertise, our experience to help you continue the traditions that you've already begun and just build on those with these events. And we believe that there's, we would like to tap into the local folks there that have been involved in the past and work, hand in hand with them, use that institutional knowledge and access that. All of these events don't need to be restarted and reinvented. You've got a great tradition begun, like the candlelight tours, the tree light ceremonies, and so forth like that. But there are events, for example, the parade, where our experience there is, we're going to believe going to be of great benefit as far as the organization. And anytime that you're shutting down streets, there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle with the sheriffs and transportation and so forth. And we do like to shut down streets. I've shut them down in Hollywood and LA, and Ellie just shut down State Street there in Santa Barbara not long ago. So we know what that takes to do that in the right way. But what we also saw, in addition to those established events, was it looked like a desire for some fresh new ideas and some new events, and some things that would enhance the community's enjoyment for the whole holiday season. And so we know there's a lot of pieces of the pie involved in that. There's the residents, and then you want involved with volunteering and coming out to enjoy, and the business community. And you don't want this to negatively impact, but you want all of these events to be a positive impact to them. And then, of course, your guests that are coming to town, your tourists, you want this to be the best experience for them that they've ever had. So we looked at, there were some new events that were suggested, and we took that, we got our creative juices flowing, put our thinking caps on. And, the thing is that they're not all large events. Some of them, like the Advent wreath lightings, that's a smaller event, but it's it's a great tradition. And, that's the kind of thing that's done right is going to be on display for the entire season for everybody to enjoy. And if they can't, it happens 4 times, so if they can't make one, maybe they'll make one of the others and so forth. So there's the smaller ones like that, but then there's St. Lucia Day, and the opportunity to celebrate that halfway mark with a really fun event that the whole community could come out to and celebrate that. And so we've got some ideas. Some of the fun things that we would want to do there, like a half-mile pet parade with all the pets, dressed up in their little holiday outfits, and a half-legged relays, and we're just going to have a good time. So that's one. And then we're looking at other assets in the community. We know that there's a lot of great restaurants like First and Oak and Madden Vin and all of these places, and these great local chefs. And we thought about how do we put a spotlight on them. And so we had this idea: you have farmers markets every week, and take that third Wednesday and do a little cooking competition. And the holiday twist on it could be, you know, they're taking some of that healthy stuff that's at the farmer's market, creating a little New Year's resolution meal. The competition will need some judges, so mayor could be one of the judges. I think that would be great. But anyway, that's one that we looked at. And we know there's you know, a desire for a Santa's Village that, as we understand it, might need to actually come together from the ground up. So we're prepared to do that. I've got my builders and design team ready to create that new home for Mr. and Mrs. Claus as needed. And then wrapping it all up with, at the end, a New Year's Eve day winter carnival out at the Mission. We look at that during the day for the main reason, again, of we're trying to help the businesses and have a positive impact on them. And so New Year's Eve is, you know, obviously for the restaurants and things like that, a big evening. So let's make it a family event during the day and let everybody go out and have their New Year's Eve celebrations at night that we would help promote as well. But for that carnival, you wanted just this to be the big finish. And we looked at this event of fun with an ice skating rink, and with we can bring in snow and create sled runs and things if you like, ice slides and games and entertainment, and wrapping it all around the fact that at 3 p.m. in our afternoon is actually midnight Copenhagen time. So we would celebrate their midnight beginning of the new year at the same time and culminate our event with some daytime fireworks. And those are something new. Haven't been seen by a lot of folks, but I've been part of the 4th of July fireworks down in Huntington Beach for a lot of years, and the company that I work with there is somebody that can do that. So that's an event that, you know, would be kind of the big final wrap to the whole thing. It was our idea. So obviously these are a lot of different events. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and there's cost involved. And so some of these are ticketed events with the opportunity for costs to come back to the city, some of the costs to be covered that way. But the way the world works, as we know, is with sponsorship. And with the tight window that we have here, there's not a lot of, you know, chance this year per se. They're you know, not completely out of the realm, but not as full as it could be in the future looking forward. So we looked at this as, if we would like this to be, you know, us to be part of this on an annual basis, and developing a sponsorship program for the future that would establish the values that are there with these different events and the assets that are there, and putting a program together that when you sit down with sponsors, you can, you know, there's a way that you match the goals of what they're trying to do, and then it's taking those partners that you gain and fulfilling the contracts that you have with them and all of their activations and things like that, because it's nice to get a sponsor on board, but you also want them to go, that was great, we met our goals, and we want to come back again next year and just get them re-signed up again, so you're not, you know, reinventing from the ground up each year. One of the events I produce every year is the Susan G. Komen event down at Dodger Stadium, and obviously with that one I work with their national sponsors and local sponsors and things like that, so I've got a real understanding of how to take what each event has in its values and expanding upon that, and really, so that's a program that we can build towards. We know that there's marketing, you know, the component of this, and there's a PR firm that we would work hand in hand with, provide their materials to them on a timely basis, so they have what they need. We included in our proposal graphics because we know that there would be pieces involved with that, and we looked at wanting to make sure that those are branded and cohesive, but we're also prepared if the desire and the need is there to add more marketing, traditional social media marketing, things like that. Those are services that we can provide. So that's kind of my quick basic overview. Just as a quick personal sidebar, my grandfather came to this country from Denmark many years ago, and Ellie's grandmother did as well. So the both of us have that family heritage that you know, kind of maybe gives us a personal extra level of interest. And just one last quick thing, I've been in the event biz my whole life, And I kind of ascribe to the Bob Fosse philosophy that he talked about and all that jazz when he said, show day is the greatest day there is. And what I love about this project is there's a lot of show days, which means there's a chance for a lot of greatest days. So that's it. Thank you for your time. Ready for questions, I hope.
Perfect. I'll start. I have one of my questions is I'm not sure how much you pay attention to solving politics, but we kind of have a goal of creating self-sustaining events, over time. So you talked a little bit about ticket revenue or other forms of revenue. Ideally, we have probably a couple example events would be our Grape Stop event and Taste of Solving, which I believe is now becoming Taste of the Valley. But I believe those events to pretty much, are cash neutral. It'd be nice to eventually get all these things kind of off of our, as a cost center and self-sustaining. Do you have any vision or ideas or concepts that can help us achieve that goal?
Well, some of these events I believe are on a smaller kind of local community basis, and so they wouldn't necessarily be an individually sponsorable event, but the larger events absolutely would, and the entire season as a whole could be as well. So there's a lot of different levels that you can create and bring partners into, and that can be. You obviously have a lot of different industries that would be interested in partnering with you, from obviously the tourism industry to a lot of different things like that. So what we would do is try to identify all of the assets that are there that are available and create a program that. The thing with sponsors in this day and age is they're not looking for the old-fashioned, gold, silver, bronze kind of thing. Those are kind of out the window because those don't necessarily match up with the goals that they have. And what we have as an audience, so what we have to take is that audience that we have and find companies that are trying to reach that audience. That's basically what sponsorship, in its basis form is, and finding those matches, and there is a lot here to offer, absolutely.
Perfect. And do you have any examples of events that you've taken over time into being more or less self-sustaining between community volunteers, sponsorships, et cetera?
We've done we've had a couple of music festivals. Actually, Avocado Festival. To be honest with you, if you look at that, it's a street festival, and it's free, and we have 75 plus bands that are performing over those days, and all of the rentals, and there's a whole lot of cost involved with that, and yet we have been able to develop this over time to where it is self-sustaining for the most part with some sponsorship and with monies that we raise through beer sales and other things like that, and now the avocado ice cream sales and things like that. So we've developed revenue streams. And what happens with this now is a lot of those community groups that are involved, and this is the fundraiser for them, and there's over $100,000 that these different groups raise in total to help them throughout the year. So yes, long answer to say yes, there are absolutely ways to do that with what you're looking at here.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah. Do you have any experience, or have you attended the Los Olivos Old Fashioned Christmas? Are you familiar with that?
I have not, no.
Okay. Because that's an event that is continuing to grow, and they're bringing in some really good stuff, and I see that as a potential draw away from our Yule Fest, and
Okay.
so I would be looking for someone to take this over that would be able to maintain our tourist base here for the holidays, rather than leaving town here and going up to
Absolutely.
Old Fashioned Christmas.
Absolutely. Competition is always healthy.
It is healthy, but I don't want to lose our tourist base to Los Olivos.
No, but so now we look at what they're doing, and we do ours better.
Okay, great.
And I think that that's part of where bringing in some of these new events are some of the things that you now have new things to talk about. You have new things to get people excited about, and new things for them to be involved in and to partake in. And so I think that's one of your pluses, is not staying with just some of those things from the past, but adding these new flavors.
Which is what I think is which is what I think has been going on, is we have been kind of a status quo, maintaining doing the same things over and over, which I don't want to lose the tradition.
Those are important.
Using those same events, but just adding more of a pop to it, so people want to come here and not drive up to Los Olivos.
Right.
Well, I mean,
Well, that's the
one of
fine
our
line
sister
that you're
cities here,
walking
I'd say, but I mean,
is maintaining those traditions while introducing new things. Absolutely.
great, thank you.
And do you have any ideas around a marketing, advertising, or promotional type package that would help complement what Karen's talking about?
So we would look at, obviously you want this to be branded and cohesive in your marketing efforts for sure. And so obviously the internet and social media and so forth like that is one of the best ways to reach people now, and you want to get all of those pieces of the puzzle so they're all synced up. But you also don't want to forego traditional media as well, because you've still got your local newspapers and print, and you need postcards, and you need flyers, and you need posters. So you need an all-encompassing marketing plan. I think that's going to take into that. One of the things that I would like to look at for a down the road kind of thing, because there are so many different pieces to this, would be a specific app for this that people could download. And that app would provide them all the information, all the different events. But the beauty of an app like that as well is it becomes another sponsorable asset. And it allows you to tie sponsors into that as well. So continuing to look for ways that are different ways for companies to be involved.
And do you have any platform for like data analytics, data collection, to see patterns or per type event that's going, that we can help improve the event every year, or revenue?
That is key, not only just for our usage and as far as audience satisfaction and so forth, but it is also one of, honestly, the most important bits of info that you have to provide to potential sponsors now. They're all looking for numbers. They're not, so that is something, and I know that was a component of the proposal, was to provide reports and things like that. And so that is something that we would be looking at as to how we would utilize that in some of the smaller events or the major events and so forth, and kind of we don't have that fully developed all the way through, to be honest with you. We just got this proposal a few days ago, but that is something that we would work towards happening because of the importance of it if we're going to move forward in developing a full, honest sponsorship package.
And I understand this RP is very fast, but you do have experience in doing that.
But that is so important, and so that is something that absolutely that we would include in what we're doing. You have to have those numbers.
And do you have any experience or expertise specifically in Christmas events?
So I shut down Hollywood Boulevard a few years ago for an adjunct event tied to the Hollywood Christmas Parade. And what we did was we provided we called it Winterfest. And I did it in conjunction with Radio Disney, and we brought in 2,000 underprivileged children, and we did a Christmas event for them where they wouldn't have had a Christmas otherwise. And so we had Christmas workshops and provided them with presents, and we created a whole Christmas world for them to come in. And then they got some performances by some Demi Lovato and some other Radio Disney stars and things like that. So that was the most specific Christmas event, yes.
Does anyone else have any questions? Is there, and what about your insurance coverage or security plan?
So the insurance was spelled out very well.
Okay.
So it was, it's not hard to read what's needed, and that'll be provided.
Perfect.
That was actually one of the best, clearly stated insurance requirements that I've seen.
Great. And are you happy to engage local volunteers and organizations as much as possible? Absolutely. Okay.
you need that involvement. You have to have that, absolutely.
Perfect. And then my last question was just if you have any additional ideas that you think would be great for a great Yule Fest here in Solvang this year.
To be honest with you, not at the moment. We worked focused on what was here, but that desire for new ones is something that, like I said, our team, if we get the opportunity to start being creative and start brainstorming and coming up with ideas, believe me, we will come up with some for you.
Perfect. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah.
Chris?
I'm sorry. This is Nick? I forgot his first name. Kevin. Sorry, Kevin. This is Chris. I don't know if you can see me.
Hi, Chris. Almost. See your shoulder.
It's all right. You don't have to see me.
There we go. Now I got it. Thank you.
One of my concerns is trying to expand on our Danish heritage, our Danish brand, Danish themes. Christmas in Denmark is a big thing, a huge thing. And one of the centerpieces for that celebration is Christmas in Tivoli. Are you familiar with this?
Minimally.
I would suggest that you take a look at that.
So I did try to do some catching up, and I know that is one of their, their most expanded locations for it, for sure.
I would suggest that you take a look at that and try to find ways to bring in that Danish culture
More Danish, sure.
into this kind of a month-long celebration. Yes, the Christmas tree lighting is a big deal, but it's not. It's really not.
But there's Christmas tree lightings in every town.
That's right. So I'd like to see that. Another thing that other cities have done very successfully, and I'm thinking specifically of Cambria, is that they put on amazing light shows. How difficult would it? I don't think it was in the RFP. I don't recall seeing it there. How difficult would it be for you to put something like that on in a small section of Solvang, if not a larger section? But the idea being it would be a light show that especially young and old people would really appreciate.
Actually, I would love the opportunity to do a light show like that. That's taking toys and playing with them in a really good way. And we can do it in a couple of different ways. We could do it as a walking light show, or as a drive-through light show, which would be a lot larger one. So perhaps it's better to start out with. And there are so many different light sculptures and so much that you can do with lighting now, that we could absolutely design and create something. And there's, architectural, we could take, depending on where the location would be, with if we had the right building as a backdrop, and utilize that as a canvas.
And that's actually what they do in Copenhagen. And I would encourage you to think about that. So please give that some thought in terms of how much time it would take to put together and the cost. I think the council would embrace something like that. Another thing that I would like to see discussed more, and I'm not sure when or where, this thing happens so fast. My concern is that this is really a month of events. It's not one single event. And all the events need to kind of embrace different targets, right? So there'll be events for children and teenagers and middle-aged people and adult and senior citizens. I would love to see events that kind of target different groups, age groups, throughout the month. And also, and it needs to have some sort of a kind of an integrated theme, so that from the very beginning to the very end, there's a sense of Danishness. There's a sense of a compelling reason to come to Solvang, that this isn't a one-off, right? So that's what I'm looking for in an event coordinator, somebody who can really come up with some amazing ideas, a vision that really celebrates what it means to have Christmas in Denmark, or in Little Denmark, if you will.
Right.
And at the same time, I agree with the mayor in the sense that I'm not afraid of competition. In fact, I think the more we can coordinate with sister cities like Las Olivas and San Ynez and Buellton and encourage them to have similar light shows, I think what we'll end up seeing is more people coming up and spending not one night but multiple nights, maybe even an entire week, because they'll know that they can use this as the hub. Solving would be the hub, and then they would be able to go to the other communities on a different night and enjoy that as well. But that what we're trying to do is create compelling reasons for people to come and spend multiple nights here and really enjoy themselves and have an experience they cannot have anywhere else.
So coordinating some of the efforts instead of being in full competition.
Right. It would be complementary, right? Because, I mean, clearly, Las Olivas has a different theme. It's Christmas in the Midwest, if you will, right? I don't know I think that's their theme. Okay, we'll call it old-fashioned, whatever that means. I don't know.
But they could
Mayberry.
almost-
Okay, Christmas in Mayberry.
But if they stay for a week, they could almost include Cambria in that week if they were to come up here, which would be a neat compliment.
Bite your tongue. What is wrong with you?
Whole Central Coast.
Knock it
It's
off.
pretty cool.
God.
So, yeah, I mean, we obviously do encourage ideas around increasing midweek because that's our slowest time, obviously, for hotels.
Exactly.
I'm sure you've heard that from
So
everyone.
anything that you can do, and the way I kind of look at it is there's going to be like a bookend effect where the people who are coming off of that Thanksgiving week, they'll be traveling through Solvang in this area, and we'd like to capture as much of that tourist group, traveling through the area. So maybe something big and exciting at the beginning, and then something equally big and exciting at the very end, as you were describing. Maybe fireworks, maybe drone shows, things like that. But something, for example, last year I was struck. I was talking with some of the hoteliers, and they were complaining about the fact that their hotels were completely full, and yet there was no place for people to go and eat and shop because the stores had closed. Which cannot happen again. We will not let that happen again, right? So we want this kind of integrated, holistic approach to celebrating this month-long set of events. And of course, in the middle, and at the same time, I want this to have this feeling like this is really about the locals and celebrating. And this is a wonderful time for the locals to get together and see each other. But at the same time, we are inviting people from all over to come and join that experience with us.
So part of you're going to accomplish part of that in how you're focusing your marketing.
Right.
And, right. So some of the events you're going to focus more to the local, and some of those you're going to expand out your marketing wider to
Exactly.
those that
So
you want to bring in bigger events and things like that. I think.
right. So when we know that people are coming through at those 2 times of the month, we'll probably tailor those events toward the visitors, right? And during the middle of the month, it might be more toward the locals in the valley.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And again, you're talking midweek and things like that. You're going to have less of your travelers then, for the most
Right.
part. So
That's exactly right.
So I'd like to get moving on. So we have 2 more interviews to do, and then we'll open this up. So please stay around because we might have questions at the end, and we'll certainly engage you again at the end. But for now, I'd like to, unless anyone else has any questions, I'd like to move on to the next candidate.
I just have one really
yeah,
quick
go for
comment.
it. Mhm.
Kevin, I just want to find a company that can make our city pop, and someone coming in says, "Wow, holy cow, this is great. This is different. This is new. This is great. This is the most Christmassy town ever."
it's a great goal.
With opportunity to
We'd like
grow in the
work hand
future.
to accomplish that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks. I'll call you back when we get to the question portion.
You got it. Thanks, Katie.
Bye.
Can I take a moment when he's done? Done. To apologize, everybody. I sliced my finger open this afternoon. I was borderline going to the doctor or going to get stitches or coming here, and I want to apologize. I'm in my 60s, and I'm never late to anything in my entire life. So I owe everybody an apology for getting here late, and thank you, because I was so preoccupied. I went to my car to get another Band-Aid. I was very preoccupied, and I completely spaced out, and that's my only excuse I have.
Did you have to butterfly it?
No, it's got crazy glue on it after a while, but it was for an hour we were playing with it. So I apologize to everybody in the public and here for being late this evening, because I'm never late and I always have a tie on. So
We appreciate all 5.
very nice.
We
So,
appreciate all 5 council members being here and staff for a special meeting.
yeah,
So
so
I think we're doing.
I feel very bad, and thank you.
Which candidate should we bring in next? IDK?
And thank you for calling me. Sorry? What is it? Simpson Hardware, the lumberyard. They were HU 610s. I was pulling them out of the rack and I just started my pants. There's blood everywhere. What's that?
Hello,
Hi.
Hello.
Council. Thanks for having me. My name's Scott Shoemake. I am the president of IDK Events. We're a little corporation based out of Fresno with offices in San Francisco and Hong Kong. So we received the RFP a week ago now. It feels like a lot longer. And we're happy that you've asked us to come here. So I'll tell you a little bit about the business. I'll explain a little bit more about the RFP and kind of how we see our role in the event and in the city of Solvang, and then let you guys ask any questions you may have. So a little bit about IDK Events. Our background is primarily street fairs, large-scale outdoor events, parades. We dabble in the Olympics occasionally. We are responsible for an electric version of Formula One called Formula E. We do a couple of races in mainland China and Hong Kong. So really, we always joke that our expertise is any event with 100,000 or more people. But that makes our employees spend a lot more time away from home than they like to. I'm a lot closer to 40 than 20 these days, and I want to spend more time at home as well. So we've been focusing more and more on smaller municipal events. We do a lot of wine walks. We do a lot of small cultural events within different municipalities around California. So that's sort of our background. We're well qualified, I believe, to produce the series of events for the city of Solvang. They're well within our wheelhouse. All of our staff is full-time staff with us, with the exception of our site operations team, the guys that actually come and move barricades and close the streets and build stages and stuff. Those guys are 1099, but they work with us throughout the year. So our site ops team is IDK family as well. So a little bit about what we see our role in and the way that we responded to the RFP. So we're asked a lot to come into cities that their event is in transition for one reason or another. Either somebody's retired or moved away, or there's some issue that has led to a change in management of these events. And we've been asked to do that a couple of times, actually several times within San Francisco. And in my opinion, it's not necessarily our job to come in and just execute an event flawlessly, because then your parade looks no different than a 4th of July parade in Fresno or a SF Pride parade in San Francisco. They start to look a little formulaic, and I don't think that's beneficial to a city like Solvang or the Danish culture here. So I really see our role as stewards of your event, and that's really the way that I formed our response to the RFP. So what I'm proposing within our response is really to take what you've done and have done well for a few years now and really execute that again at that same level. Building assets that the city owns. One of the ways or things, every one of our contracts with every one of our clients is written that everything we do is owned by our client, not by us. So all of the work product that we do, any sets we build, anything that you're essentially paying for is yours, right? So we try and build standalone sort of a package that you can then take and do with as you please. Of course, we hope that you stay with us, that we do a good job and that you want to stay with us forever. For a variety of reasons, that doesn't always work out. But what we hope is that we can steward the event through whatever transition is happening, execute it to as high a level as possible, bring some of our own flair. Our team is young, being that we're from Fresno and not the valley necessarily, the other valley on the other side of the hill. We come with a different perspective, and we do hope to bring that perspective and perhaps enhance or make mild changes to what you've been doing. But really, our 80% of our focus is going to be in just stewarding your event forward to the next step. Within the pricing on the proposal, we included a website. I think that every event series should have its own dedicated site. I know that you guys have a landing page on the City Council or the City of Solvang's website. I see another landing page that exists out there right now that's got some information. To that end, we propose that you use, I believe it's yulefestsolving.com as a web address. We would happily build that for you. We could put all the ticket revenue there. All of the social media marketing can go back to that website. So again, that, regardless of who is managing the event, I think everybody here is qualified. All three applicants that I've seen are qualified to actually produce the event, right? So if we stipulate that we can all do that, what can we do better? And I think that piece is what I believe that we bring to the table. So a big part of it is just building out that website, making sure that all the social media and everything is coming back to that one spot. So then you can kind of forklift that around as you need, as your needs progress. Regarding sponsorship and ticket sale offsets, I put in there that we were offsetting at 80% for sponsorship, meaning that we would provide the city with 80% of whatever sponsorship revenue that is raised as part of the event series. I did that as a hedge, to be completely honest with you, because we only had a very short time to respond to the RFP, and it was, as was mentioned earlier, a little vague. So, if we're selected as the vendor during the contract negotiation period, I'm happy to remove that requirement once we understand better what the scope is, and provide 100% of that revenue back to the city. It was really just a hedge to make sure that the actual expenses are covered. The last thing that I'll say is the way that our pricing is structured is, if you look at it, it's a $100,000 deal. Roughly 25,000 of that is our management services, including the website and things like that. And then the rest would be what we would consider pass-through expenses for the event itself. Permit fees, which may or may not be waived by the city, traffic control, police expenses, security expenses, things that we don't actually own. We own our own sound, we own our own lighting and truss, and have our own staff, and all of that's included in our management fee. Where possible, we'll use as much of our own stuff as is required, but if we need, to go to an outside tent vendor, or whatever, then that's what the balance of that $100,000 looks like. I think that's everything. So I'm happy to ask or answer any questions, and I'd really be honored to like I said, steward this event on to for you guys this year.
Perfect. One of my questions, I just like to explain somewhat of our vision here, but we're trying to create hopefully self-sustaining events here in the city of Solvang, obviously for budgetary reasons. But I'd like to hear from you about any ideas you have around revenue generation, how we eventually can get to our goal of self-sustaining events optimally, they'd actually generate revenue for the city.
Yeah. So I'm guessing. I mean, again, I don't have any data from previous years, but I'm guessing you probably saw between 20 and 30,000 in ticket revenue for the event. That should pay for your event producer, forever. So then, now it's the expense side, right? So again, without knowing what those expenses are, and without knowing what level is city fees. Obviously, in some municipalities, you can pay 70 to 80,000 just for the permit. In other municipalities, it's $10. We do street closures in Fresno all the time. It's literally a $10 permit. So there are ways that we can offset some of those expenses. In terms of directly answering your question about sustainability, I think sponsorship. There's companies out there that are very interested in what you're doing in Solvang. There are companies that are interested in this valley and in this area. Whether or not there's an appetite within the community to invite that sponsorship in, remains to be seen. But I think that's the number one way to ensure the events are self-sustaining is to find a named sponsor. I think in this area, Airbnb comes to mind. It's somebody we work with very carefully. When we were, putting our pricing together, knowing that we would need to be here for an extended period of time, knowing that we would basically move a team here dedicated to this event, we started looking at Airbnb experiences, and they have a very curated experience group that they do for people within 100 miles of any kind of interesting city. Solvang certainly qualifies. So reaching out to their marketing team, I think, is a low-hanging fruit. But sponsorship revenue, outside of increasing tickets to where they cost $1,000 a person, which doesn't make any sense, I think sponsorship revenue is the easiest way to do that. And I think the things that we want to do really align with that eventual goal, creating a website, making sure that all the social media that we're doing comes back to that one website so that you can then move that forward to a different producer and the event within itself kind of grows and becomes its own piece. I hope I answered your question, sorry.
Yeah, I think so. The last is I just wonder if you have any examples of events that your company has grown over time into sustainable.
Sure. I mean, San Francisco Pride's the easy one because it's one of our biggest domestic events. When Pride came to us, you know, in a period of transition, their revenue for the parade was about $80,000. They felt like they could do more. We'd been telling them for years they could do more. We'd been producing the event, but not really dealing with the revenue side. And you know, we changed the way that we sell the parade, right? So instead of everybody paying $100 to enter the parade, we said, look, let's charge a corporation with over 10 million in revenue, $8,000 to be in the parade. Let's charge a nonprofit that has 2 members and no business license, $75, right? Let them march with as many people as they want. Limit the corporations to 1,500. And we really started creating a pricing matrix. And last year, Jacob, my colleague here, what did we do, 800? 742,000 in parade revenue in 5 years from 80,000. So same thing on the sponsorship side. We started telling them about, and that's where our world experience kind of comes in. We work with a lot of ad agencies and marketing companies around the world. And they've been begging us to not send, you know, a sponsorship deck that says, oh, for $500, you're going to be a gold sponsor with naming rights, and you're going to get a banner and a quarter-page ad. Like, that's boring to a lot of these brands nowadays. So they want experiences. And so if we go to those same brands and say, you know, we're going to, there's this really cool horse thing that I saw out there. That's amazing. Like, branding that in a very subtle way that's palatable to the community, but also strong with the sponsor, I think would be neat, right? And creating those experiences and changing from that model that Pride had kind of gotten stuck in a while. We increased, they were at 740,000 5 years ago in sponsorship revenue, and this year we did, sorry, Jacob? 2.3 million. So same thing there, where we just very subtle minor changes to try and enhance it. All of that being said, I also believe that it's our job to best represent the community. So there were lots of community discussions around corporate participation and corporate whitewashing of that particular event. And so we're very, very sensitive to that. We don't want to just come in here and take this amazing event where there's, you know, high school cheerleaders doing fun things and ballets, dancers dancing around the trees and a really homegrown feel. We don't want to take that and, you know, make it look like it's sponsored by Visa or sponsored by Airbnb and just turn it into, you know, another version of the Olympics. That doesn't feel right.
Got it. And are you open to engaging local volunteers to help reduce cost, as well as working as much as possible with local organizations and people in the community?
100%. So 100%. That I again, like I've said before, it's our job to come in and steward what you're doing and just try and do as good a job, if not better, as possible. And we can't do that if we just come in and say, no, we got this, like, and make it another event. We must have local volunteers. We must have local participations with some of the businesses in the area, or the event won't be successful. The community won't get behind it, and then it just kind of dies on the vine, and that's not fair.
Perfect. And do you have any experience related directly to Christmas type events that you can speak for?
We've not done any Christmas-specific events. As a participant, we've certainly participated around the world at the Paris markets, the New York markets. As a consumer, if we're not selected, you'll find me at a Christmas market somewhere in December.
Perfect. Does anyone else have any questions?
Sure. So, so you're open to creativity and new ideas to expand upon what we've already been doing for years?
Yeah, I am. And I think, again, the way the RFP was written, I wanted to make sure that we were responding specifically to what was asked there and understanding the challenge you would have if all of us were providing a bunch of ideas. So I was very specific in the way we responded, just saying, you know, taking the old line from Warren Buffett, we'll do it. Kind of taking what you were asking in the RFP and making sure that we met that at a minimum, with an understanding that if we were selected during the contract negotiation period, we'd be able to offer some other ideas and other potential revenue generating ideas that we may have, as well as partnering with other constituents. I would love, I don't know if it's something that's been discussed, but I would love the opportunity to create a community forum that we host where we bring people together, because the community is really going to tell us what they want their event to be. Because again, it's not an IDK event, it's the city and the community's event. We're just the stewards of that.
Great, okay, yeah, because we're looking for something that, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, something that's really going to make this Yule Fest season pop, be different, wow people, something pretty spectacular, something different that we can do to our park other than what we've always done in the past. I mean, we've had comments about Tivoli, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with that, but in keeping with Danish tradition. So we're just looking for something very, very unique to come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I
that
think
we can continue.
And I think understanding the budget constraints there and making sure that we're delivering something that doesn't, I mean, sure, write a check for $1 million, we'll get Beyonce to come and do a concert in the park and tons of people will come, she'll dress up as a Santa, we can do that, right? Like, totally doable. You know, on the other end of that, for, you know, $15,000, you could get Shaka Khan to come and sing. And again, like inviting a bigger, better, different, you know, people to come and experience that within different budgets. And I think this is where, once if we're selected, our first job is really to start talking to the community and talking to our corporate partners and say, okay, we have this new opportunity. You guys have been on board with us through the Union Street Fair, the Castro Street Fair, Pride. You know, here's this new opportunity in Central California where you have employees, where you have, you know, some of your employees are living, where you have partners in other businesses or suppliers. You know, how can you step up to the table, either with your philanthropic budget or with your corporate marketing budget, and let's do something cool. But for the purposes of the RFP, I wanted to make sure that we kept it kind of at that baseline and basically said, okay, we're going to get you there because we don't want to break it. That's the last thing we want, is to be standing in front of you on the third Wednesday of January going, oh, I'm really sorry. You know, I'm sorry nobody came, and I'm sorry that social media is saying that it was a terrible event. That's not in my DNA.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any ideas around marketing, advertising, or promotional type packages to get the word out there for the event?
Yeah, so as we were driving in today, my social media manager, Angie's here with us, and for exactly that reason, I wanted to get some ideas. So as we drove in and we were walking around and shopping in the local stores, one of the things that she said was, this is the most Instagrammable place I've been in my life, right? So a big chunk of our social media budget that we put in here is to work with I hate using the word influencers because that whole category is goofy, but really working with local influencers, because there's no better word for it, to show what solving is. I mean, Angie was, sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. Angie was born and raised in Fresno, which is, you know, a 3-hour drive from here, has never been to solving, right? She's 26, I think. There's an entire generation of young people within driving distance of this amazing town that don't understand the history. They don't understand the architecture. They don't understand what a cool place it is. They stop at Pismo and they don't keep coming, right? So working with social media, I think will attract a younger audience while still building an event for the folks that live here year after year, that are here for the other 360 days of the year, you know? So our plan, again, building the website, we've already bought the domain name, which we'll happily transfer to you guys, just because I want to make sure nobody else, you know, no other, sometimes people when they're Googling will just buy things and cyber squat. So we bought the domain name, happy to transfer that to the city or whoever we need to when we're done. But building the website with that domain name and building all of the social media coming back to that, I think is the best platform that we can create to touch eyeballs that haven't been touched in previous years.
Perfect. Are there any other questions? Chris?
Yeah. I asked a number of questions to the other group, and I'm going to ask something similar to you, to be fair. So how familiar are you with Danish Christmas, or Christmas in Denmark?
I would lie to you if I said that I was intimately familiar with it. So I'm not intimately familiar with Christmas in Denmark, other than the ladies of London.
I don't know who they are. So Christmas in Denmark is the biggest event of the year. And you can imagine, as cold, as wet, as snowy as it is in Denmark and Copenhagen, they turn out as an entire country for that event. I guess they just like really cold weather. But nevertheless, it's a very festive time of the year. It's a time that brings families together. And I would encourage you to keep that as a visual or as a vision as we try to put this event together. And the events that we have in mind, and we are completely open to what can be done. And we're kind of looking for you to give us some ideas. We have ideas. Everyone has great ideas. But the question is, can we do them in the time frame that we have? And at the same time, we're looking to someone like you to put together a series of events that incorporate as much of the valley as well as visitors who come through the valley. For example, at the beginning of December, end of November, we have the Thanksgiving holiday. So we're looking to capture as much of that tourist group that's coming through on their way to someplace else. And maybe we have certain events that are targeted more toward the visitor at that time. And at the same time, at the end of the month, December, there's a week-long period where people are, again, traveling through, visiting family. They have time to do that. And what we're trying to do is capture that market, capture that group, and keep them here for as long as possible. So I would encourage you to think in terms of events like that would bookend the month, and at the same time, a series of events throughout the month that are tailored more toward the locals. Because, again, we're here, we're on vacation ourselves, and we're looking for something to do in the middle of that period. At the same time, there are people, and try to target different markets. So there's events for the children and events for the senior citizens, events for everything in between. I would love to see the utilization of certain elements of our community. For example, we have something called the Theater Fest, a theater. And to my knowledge, it's pretty much empty at that time of the year. I don't think anything's going on because it's so cold. Well, I was thinking that perhaps on a weekday or a weekend, during the day, there might be a way to utilize that with plays or music for senior citizens and kids. And I don't think that would be too difficult to add to the list, right? So the idea that you're going to somehow break what we already have, I wouldn't worry about that. Be creative. And what we want, and I think you kind of touched on this, what you're trying to do is lay down kind of like blocks that can be built upon for the future. I think that's what I took away from your discussion.
Correct.
And you're willing to essentially give that to us. You're going to build it.
Right.
And then we can go back and use it again and again and expand on each of those blocks or those themes, and especially the ones that work.
Right.
And I'll give you another, since I asked this of the other group, I'm going to ask this of you too. How difficult would it be for you to put on a light show much like the one that is in Cambria? I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one. It's called Cambria Christmas Market. Can you put that up there? Cambria Christmasmarket.com.
I wouldn't, I mean.
Yeah.
All right.
If you haven't been there, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's also 13 million lights.
Yeah, these are the LEDs, and like when you come over the hill, you see the LEDs. Like, is that the one near Paso Robles? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I'm familiar with it. I've not been myself, but I mean, candidly, I was at dinner the other night and somebody invited me to go. So the
So you're aware of it.
yeah. It's the fiber optic lights, correct? That's what?
That's the Field of Lights, I believe.
Yeah.
So unfortunately,
That's what I was thinking. It was Field of Lights. So
Yeah.
So as much as I would like to see something exciting like that, it doesn't have to be that. I'm just concerned about the time frame.
Yeah,
But if you could pull that off and bring sponsors to it and help make that work financially, that would be huge.
Yeah, timing wise, I think, yeah, you're right at the edge of being kind of almost out of luck. But I think something like that is definitely doable. I mean, you can do a very impressive light show fairly inexpensively with a few fixtures, a few bits of truss, some music, and, you know, really well executed DMX programming. You know, again, I think within our management fee, we're happy, and within, you know, assuming we're selected, it's tough. As a business owner, you know, I have an obligation to make sure that I can pay my employees' salaries every month. So it's hard for me to like as excited as I get. Over the years, I've had to like pull myself back from like diving in and spending 15 hours like trying to research things. So I
Here's where
didn't
I'm
do as
going with
much as
that.
I should have this time.
I'm not really sure. I understand that you're trying to work with us with respect to your business model, and I appreciate that.
Yep.
And I think that we can find a way to accommodate you and at the same time work within a budget that everybody's agreeable to. If we were to break even as a city, I don't think we're worried about that. We have the resources to do this. If it goes to, you know, well beyond 100,000, I think that's what you were quoting. And it generates the kind of pop that you were talking about and the enthusiasm and excitement. Such that visitors from outside the community can't wait to come back because they can't find this experience anywhere else. Just like you were talking about Cambria Lights. Everybody knows it.
Right.
Why?
Right.
Because it's compelling. We don't have that here. We're looking to build something like that here. Secondly, we're looking to provide some kind of or create some kind of an integrated or complementary relationship with the other communities like Los Olivos, San Ynez, and Buellton, such that we want people to come and stay here for multiple nights and then enjoy themselves at the other communities. Like Los Olivos doesn't have hotels, so we expect them to stay here, but you know, spend one night over there and a night here, a night in San Ynez or Buellton. But we want the people from outside the area to think they can't wait to come back. We need to create an amazing, compelling experience, and not just for one day, but for the entire month. So be creative, think outside the box, and we'll figure out the money part as it comes, you know, as it becomes an
Can I
issue.
add to that too, though, Chris? We're already is it the top 10 or top 5 Christmas destinations in the nation?
Top 5.
So we're not reinventing the wheel.
Right.
We're making it better.
Right.
And that's our goal. So that's, I think, first and foremost, keep in your mind is we're already really, really good.
Yeah.
People really, really like solving at Christmas time, but we want to make it a little bit better.
I love it.
A lot better.
A lot better.
And I also,
What he
and
said.
I will say this one last time, make it Danish.
Yeah.
We want to celebrate the Danish culture, the Danish heritage, the Danish food, the Danish beer, the Danish music, the Danish plays. And in other words, I want people to think, wow, I can't wait to come back.
Right. I like it. That's a little different than what was in the RFP, so it's really refreshing to hear that because you just became like a dream client when you say.
We're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Really, really, really popular.
Right.
We just need somebody to put this on for us this year.
Yeah, and we can do fun things like to target the different. I mean, again, I would want to sit with the team to come up with some really strong ideas. But just off the top of my head, one of the things that we talked about is the idea of doing a silent disco, and which sounds kind of boring to a certain demographic, but it's like thrilling to the 18 and up crowd that doesn't have anything else to really do because the nightclubs don't allow them in or there aren't any. Not the most Danish thing in the world, I understand, but we could find a way to accommodate that. We could do lights there. You have that cool square where the tree is and that kind of pagoda stage thing, which is neat. I think that lends itself well to a platform to do some really cool laser or LED fixtures. So I do think that what you're saying is 100% possible within the time frame that you have and the budget. And I think that we're
And I want to bring that, you made a really important point. I want something that the teenagers have a place to go. For example, there are facilities in town that we can rent and put on an amazing dance just for them, or maybe a couple of them throughout in San Francisco, I used to go to this amazing event. People would dress up as Santas. I can't remember what it was called, but
SantaCon?
No, that was a little different. But I like your idea.
Yeah.
Go with that one. That's good.
Yeah, and
this was like Santa's elves.
Got it.
And some of them were nice and some of them were naughty, but it was a hugely entertaining dance. And people, it was one of those, almost like a rave party where people didn't know about it. They just put it online and the tickets would sell out in 3 days. And these guys made a ton of money and it was hysterical.
Yeah.
But I think that something like that for the kids would be amazing.
Yeah, and again, I think to my earlier point about making sure that, hearing that this is acceptable within the community, one of the things that I'd written down earlier was the Santa Skivvy Run, which is a very popular event in San Francisco. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's hugely
This is
popular,
Solvang,
makes a ton
remember?
of money. No, and I'm not I'm not proposing that we do exactly that here, but SantaCon is a worldwide organization of people that have the ability to pull literally across demographics and across geographies. You know, whether you're in London or you're in San Francisco or you're in Australia, when SantaCon SantaCon comes to town, all of a sudden you've got 300 people, you know, dressed as Santa doing a pub crawl. You know, where again, here with the Danish culture, we could do that, you know, we could do a bakery crawl to keep it a little more PC, or we do, you know, everybody buys a Stein, dresses as Santa, and does a beer crawl. So I do think there's some really creative things we
Skull
can do.
Walk.
Pardon?
I think we call it the Skull Walk.
Right. So I think there are some things that we can do that can pull across demographics fairly easily. And to answer your very specific question about timing, I think while you're right on the edge, I think we have enough time to execute and a large enough team that we can focus, you know, our social media team on building out your presence and your web presence and your ticket sales, while our event management team is building out the actual infrastructure of the events. And, you know, we're all talking with the community, trying to come up with those ideas. So I think we have the ability to do it in the time frame that you're asking.
Cool.
Do you have any platform for data analytics on all the visitors and ticket sales, things so we can keep, you know, collecting data and building upon the events?
Yeah, so we use ToneDen, which is a plugin within Eventbrite to capture as much information as we can from, so we use Eventbrite as a ticket platform. We try and drive all the traffic to the website first and then use Eventbrite embedded in the website. So we're capturing some details from the website level, but all the marketing we do uses ToneDen pixels. So we can see if it's a, and this is actually really cool. I can nerd out about this for an hour, but there's these really cool algorithms that ToneDen has. So we can create, you know, 1,000 different variations of the exact same message, like maybe with a different picture or with a video, with a bunch of text or a little text, with, you know, calling it a Skull Walk versus calling it SantaCon. And the algorithm will say, okay, I'm going to send all 1,000 of these ads out, and all of a sudden I'm seeing a lot more interest here. So it just shifts the ad budget to the ad that's performing better. And it's doing all of that 1,000 times an hour, a minute, a day. And it's crazy because we see it with the wine walks. We do a lot of wine walks. And you'll send the algorithm out into the world and you might sell like 2 tickets. And then tomorrow you'll sell like 4 tickets. And then the algorithm, like you see it learning, like I'm literally visualizing this like machine learning. And all of a sudden, like the next day it sells 8. And then all of a sudden it like gets super specific and it sells 20, 30, and then all of a sudden you're selling like 100 tickets an hour as soon as this algorithm figures it out. So it's ToneDen, it's what we use, and it works great, and we love it. And you know, one of the things, sorry, I'm talking too much. One of the things that we talked about in that idea category was doing like a proper Christmas market. And working with the local vendors and bringing in some of the other arts and crafts vendors that we have, you know, regionally. We have a database, I think, of 15,000 arts and crafts vendors within California that kind of follow us around to do all of our events. And reaching out to that kind of geographic circle, draw a circle around, you know, 100 miles around Solvang, and kind of bring some of those guys in too, assuming they're not competing with the local businesses. And do a proper Christmas market. And when we were talking about that, we were talking about like how we can target, you know, the right people to come to that market in using those pixels and stuff. So
Yeah, in fact, that's a common theme also in Denmark, the Christmas markets.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can figure out how to embed that into that
Yeah.
process, that'd be good.
yeah, I love Christmas markets.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Anything else?
No.
Awesome.
Good, yeah.
Thank you guys very, very much. If nothing else, this is fun.
No other questions from the council? Okay, move on to the next.
Thank you very much.
And you guys can stay in the room now. It doesn't matter now.
And you've worked on Hainan Island?
Hainan and Sonia, how'd you know?
Yeah. It's in your resume.
Oh, yeah.
I've been to Formula One in Shanghai.
Really?
Yeah, and I know where you were at.
Yeah, we lived in Hainan from January to March of this year.
Wow. Oh, non-humid time.
Yeah, it was miserable. It was still very hot. We'll have a conversation afterwards about meat on a stick.
Yeah.
Dog?
Hi.
Yeah. Yes, Katie.
Sorry, I just wanted to say there is a typo or something missing in your memo under Daniel Lahr, under the additional events that he's providing. I apologize, but the New Year's Eve event is not on the memo part. It is in his proposal, but just wanted to point that out.
It's going to
There, at the end of the presentations and questions, then we'll do public comment, then we'll, yeah.
Cheers.
Okay, Daniel.
Ready to go? Okay.
Yes.
So Mayor, council members, thank you for inviting me here tonight to present my vision for Yule Fest. Once again, for those of you who may not know me yet, my name is Daniel Lair, and I am the only remaining staff member of the SCVB. And I also want to clearly state that my bid here comes from me as an individual and not as a representative of the SCVB. I therefore cannot comment on any SCVB arrangements, property, or status unless given an express written approval from the SCVB Board of Directors. And just also saying that, I want to let you know that they are aware that I'm here, and I also have their support. Over the last few months, I've been receiving calls, texts, emails from many locals and vendors regarding the status and what my involvement is in the 2019 Yule Fest. And so it is with their encouragement I have chosen to officially put in a bid for Yule Fest. So I stand here with the same goals set forth by the City Council as well as the citizens of Solvang, and that is to continue honoring Yule Fest traditions that have been celebrated by families and friends, both new and old, for many years. This event has been my baby for the last couple of years, as has Taste of Solvang and the Solvang Stomp events. And due to the current situation, which we're all very well aware of, it's been immensely difficult just personally, including even handing over the Solvang Stomp to VSYV. But that being said, it is the only logical choice to move forward with that event to make sure it's the best it can be. And I'm thrilled to say that I've been asked to work with them this year, and I'll be helping out with the operations of that event. You may also have seen me recently as the Master of Ceremonies for Danish Days. This is my second year of doing so. I'm so happy and thrilled to be honored and tied to these cornerstone events in the city. But of course, Yule Fest definitely holds a special place in my heart. For the past 2 years, I've been given the honor and responsibility of producing Yule Fest for Solvang as I work for SCVB as a special programs manager. In my years there, I've been able to enhance traditional events, implement new experiences that have helped create new memories for all generations. I came up with the theme of a Danish tradition back in 2017, which repeated again in 2018 because it became just clear to me that it was more of a subtitle of the event rather than just a theme. So while remaining true to the holiday spirit, I pushed to maintain the Danish element in the event as much as possible in order to enrich the visitor experience. Many of the events listed in the RFP scope of work are actually events that I've been responsible for creating during my time there at the SCVB. And I do have a lot more planned. While I was helming the Yule Fest, Solvang was named the best Christmas town in California by the New York Post and one of the best Christmas towns in America by Reader's Digest. And both articles cite events that I had created, including the incredibly popular Nisa Adventure. This year alone, O Magazine recently did a preview about Yule Fest. That's Oprah's magazine. Also, as the film liaison with Solvang, I've been meeting with Autumn Federici of Ninth House Films, who is wanting to make a Hallmark or Netflix movie here in Solvang, and using Solvang as the setting of the story based on Christmas in Solvang. This growing international presence on top of our reputation with neighboring communities throughout the Central Coast has given us a marketing value that is immeasurably valuable, and we never paid a dime for it. I come from a background of managing operations on large holiday events at world-class tourist locations and attractions such as Knott's Berry Farm and the Queen Mary in Long Beach. You may have heard about the winter event there at Queen Mary called Chill. It's also known as ICE throughout the rest of the United States. Over on the East Coast, and I played an integral role in bringing that event to the West Coast, and I was responsible for the daily operations of that event, which spanned the same time frame as Yule Fest. Some days at our peak, we saw several thousand people walk into a tent that was chilled down to 7 degrees, filled with ice sculptures, slides, and yes, even a bar, all within the old Spruce Goose Dome. One of the most challenging aspects of that event was actually the transformation of the venue. Only 2 weeks prior, that is the same location of one of LA's largest Halloween events, Dark Harbor, which I also oversaw the operations of. Now, while most of my career has been spent working within the entertainment capital of the world, I am a native to San Ynez Valley. And I was a Solvang resident in my youth and San Ynez High School alumni. I remember what it was like to experience the transformation of this beautiful city during the Christmas season. Also, after producing 2 highly successful years, I've come to know on a first-hand account what the visitor responses are, what the local business needs are, and also the economic impact of Yulefest, not just to Solvang, but the entire San Ynez community. I also just want to talk about, it's not just talking about economic impacts to the valley too. They're little things that have a huge impact on the community, little things that I don't believe anyone else may catch in just the few short weeks before this event's scheduled to take place. So for example, Ms. Christine Fossimal of Fossimal Dance Studios has been a part of the tree lighting ceremony for a very long time. She choreographs the dances, including the traditional dancing around the tree when it's finally lit. I personally know Miss Christine since I was about 7 years old. When I began dancing in her studios, I was one of the only boys there. I personally know the hard work that those kids go through to put on those performances for her. And now my 4-year-old daughter, Amelia, whose image you may have seen some of the advertisements for Solvang, she's that really cute, adorable little redhead girl. She just began her first dance classes, and as a former dancer, I couldn't be prouder. But that has given me a new perspective as being a dad. I think about the uncertainty of their child's annual performance, something that these dancers look forward to each year. And if I'm chosen to continue my work, I'll promise that I'll work hard to retain those millions of little things that continue to build on the traditions of Yulefest. I've read the other proposals, and I got to meet them back there in that room, and it's impressive for sure. And they include events and offerings, and even producing a website I saw. Without a doubt, they are extremely qualified candidates. Albeit that, they are more expensive. I don't have a company like they do. I did recently start a 501c3 organization, the Central Coast Film Society. We've had small screenings and other events, and we're actually going to be producing a film festival here in the Valley. That's coming October 2020. But for Yulefest, I'll obviously be working with a new team that I have before. And I have heard loud and clear that the council's vision is doing more with less with the public's tax money. And I plan on doing that by fully utilizing the relationships that I've built and asking local associations, businesses, and individuals for help during Yulefest. And I was there during the State of the City lunch when the bid was put out by Mr. Olson, and the mayor was there and helped contribute to the tree going into Solvang Park. And that was, honestly, that was a fantastic moment of unity in the community. And that's the local spirit I want to help bring to this event. I'm afraid someone coming from outside just won't know how to do that, or with this very unique community. I also wonder, do they know what Hygge is? Do they know what the Julemadden is? Do they know what to give the Nisa to stop tying the cows' tails together? Most importantly, I wonder if they know what makes a good glug. I've also had my finger on the pulse of some of the business owners and the locals regarding Yulefest. This event is so unique to Solvang, as it is, of course, designed to cater to our visitors. To me, it's become increasingly valuable, I think, to local residents to participate in. I'm also aware of the current issues going on that someone not familiar with Solvang can miss. For example, during Danish Days, Bent Olsen came up to me after I was hosting the opening day ceremonies, and he informed me with a tear in his eye that the location that had hosted his amazing 6-foot-tall, 4-foot-wide gingerbread house for the past 26 years has declined to host that gingerbread house again. I was stunned just about as much as he was. That is a jewel among Yulefest in this town, and I am currently working on trying to find it a new home for Bent. My plan for Yulefest is also not just a rubber stamp. In fact, I think I saw the Pink Cadillac Entertainment, and I seem to have the same idea for the during the RFP process for the Yulefest New Year's Eve celebration at 3 o'clock. So celebrate at 3 o'clock there, right there in the middle of town. And it's a nice family-oriented event. So great idea. Also, the addition of adding a market or working with the Chamber of Commerce to execute a sidewalk sale like we did during the Taste of Solvang. I would love to recreate some sort of nighttime candle parade that we see during the Solvang Danish Days for the St. Lucia Day. But I also want to speak to the Solvang Danish Days Foundation to see what their best practices are for that event. That is doing more with less. Now, of course, I'd love to go all out and put a real ice skating rink in down Copenhagen Drive and have it there for the entire duration of the event. They look amazing. They provide amazing experiences, but I also know from experiences at Chill how incredibly expensive they are to operate. And I do know everything that can go wrong with them. Something like that takes an immense amount of time to prepare in order to also just protect the city from unforeseen liabilities. It takes time. Now, I also want to help try and look for events for Yule Fest that happen throughout the day. We have all these events that happen on the weekends. Now, to provide that, I actually looked to an experience I had with my family. And we live in Arroyo Grande, and one of the nearby events is the Cambria Christmas lights. And I had earlier had an idea of possibly doing something on a much smaller scale, but at the Solvang Festival Theater Garden area. Given the short amount of time prep, I would also need more time to look into this just to see if there's feasibilities and costs and profits. But also from working with Fred at Parks and Rec and putting on the tree lighting ceremony, I know how much foot traffic can really hamper down on grass and lawn areas, and that there is a price there. But that would help provide the offerings to capture the midweek businesses, which our town needs the most, and provide families with even more options during Yule Fest. So as a father of two, who has been blessed with the opportunity to work in my hometown and live near my extended family, today is exactly 3 months away from Christmas, and in just a few weeks before the commencement of Yule Fest events. So I come to you today with the history and culture of Solvang, a place where I've been an ambassador to the world. I've been a storyteller my whole life, and the people love stories about Solvang's traditions. It's part of its charm. I believe I am the best fit to bring up those same traditions that I had here in Solvang as a child. Again, I want to commend IDK Events and Pink Cadillac Entertainments on their presentations and what they've brought forth to the table. But I do want to close with one question, and it's why. Ask yourself, why does he want to do this? Me. And for me, it's easy. My children are my why. The work I do is for them and for the generations of future children who deserve to share the same memories as their parents and grandparents had during Yule Fest for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. So I'll start. You're probably aware, I think you kind of addressed in your presentation, that we're looking to ultimately try to create self-sustaining events due to budget constraints and things like that. So what I'd like to hear from you is ideas you have around ultimately creating a much better, bigger Yule Fest, but with the long-term plan of making it self-sustainable.
Yeah, I think that probably one of the best ideas is giving those offerings that's during each day. So I think something like the tree light, or I'm sorry, the lights on a smaller scale. I know from experience, you need to have something with a ticketed entrance. You need to have something where you have a ticket, people have to come in and have that experience. So what that experience looks like on a daily basis for Yule Fest would be the key. And I think Cambria does that very well. I think that's a great model to look at. And my kids love it, and we try to go every year. But last year I was busy with Yule Fest, so I think doing something like that, where you have a enclosed area that has a special offerings. That can be where Santa is. That could be where you have a special market. That could be where all the events. If there's one central location in Solvang that you have that charged ticketed entrance for, I think that's your key. That really is the key that's going to unlock it for everything. I think by having what we have now with our events all around town, it's great to have that free offerings. Last year, I was putting things away one weekend, and I had been stopped by some people, and they just asked me directions. I'm not wearing a name tag or anything. They just say, "Hey, you look friendly. Do you know the way over here?" And I kind of asked them questions, and I'm like, "So how'd you hear about us?" And they go, "Well, it's because we saw that there were so many different things offered." They said there was this NISA adventure, and these are not children, these are adults and middle-aged folks, and they said we were running around having the time of our lives finding those little critters. And I think it's if you build on enough of those family-friendly events, if there's just a whole roster of things going, and if you have that space again, where you charge a ticket where people come in and check it out, maybe you do something where you have like bring in some snow, crushed ice, and bring that in every so often. We did that at another one of our locations, and it was a sandbox for snow for kids, and they got to come in, make snowballs and snowmen, and that was a lot of fun. It was very popular. So adding small, little, tiny attractions like that would be a key.
And then what are your abilities for engaging sponsorships, local volunteers, organizations to help reduce event cost as well as community involvement?
Well, that's part of what the job was that I've been doing. Securing sponsorships, we were very fortunate, and the Chumash Casino was helping us last year. Shelby was also a huge supporter for us. And it's also reaching out to volunteers. One of the things that I looked at was during the fires was also when Yule Fest was going on. And that's also when the Boy Scout camp burnt down, was during Yule Fest. And so the next year we wanted to really try and come up with something where give the Boy Scouts a stage and try and give them sign-up presents so that it helps generate their fundraising efforts. So it's kind of trying to think of things like that. They still need help, so I still would be thinking you go to them, you try and get them to come back. And they did a great job. I also, the St. Anne's Valley Foundation was great. Jackie Wagstaff, she's been instrumental in helping me just reach out and try and find volunteers, kids at high school that want to come in and work with Santa and be the little elves and helping with the line and crowd control. That's how we've done it. That's how we've done it for years. So it's always been reaching out for volunteers, and even the parade volunteers. You need the 15 people out there, and so I buy a big box of Danishes and I bring everybody in here to City Council chambers early in the morning and tell some really bad jokes, and we go out there and have a fun time at the parade.
Perfect. I think Summer has mentioned that you did some other events outside of Solvang. So just relate those. Obviously, we know that you're involved with Yule Fest here locally. But do you have any other expertise around Christmas type events?
Yeah. So Chill at the Queen Mary.
Okay.
So that was a brand new event. It had never been done before on the West Coast. When I actually had been working at Disney World for a while, there's a place called Gaylord Palms, and they did the same thing. They have a huge convention room, and they have all this Christmas things. But when it became an opportunity to bring that to the West Coast, we had this massive Spruce Goose Dome down there, and so we were able to help utilize that. So my hand was in the forming and layout of where things should go, just based on terms of just the sheer volume of people we were expecting. So overseeing the daily operations of how many people can go through at a time, how many people can go down the slide, dealing with OSHA and safety. And there's a lot of things that I had my hand in on more of an operational side of things there. But same thing with point of entry, ticketing, marketing purposes as well, helping organize shoots, getting all that pushed out. So I really had my hand in it. I oversaw about 300 individuals that were operating that for that season at the Queen Mary.
Perfect. And then do you have any ideas around marketing or advertising, promotional type plans to?
Yeah, so I mean, there's, I don't want to speak, too much, but we would try to bring out as many different associations and go through their networking opportunities as possible. I've also been able to make connections with local radio, television contacts, and really push that out. Newspapers as well. Los Angeles was our #1 market based on what our statistics that we gathered from the Yule Skull Stroll and from the candlelight tours. We can actually see where those tickets are being purchased from. And the majority of them is from Los Angeles. The next furthest one is San Francisco. But Los Angeles was definitely the big one, and rightfully so. So I think maybe even looking into a possible marketing campaign that reaches down to Los Angeles area as well.
Perfect. And then is there any other questions of the council? No.
Go ahead, Chris.
Karen?
Other than the way you talk about Fossil-Mall, I already know I like you because my daughter was there 11 years, and it's a great, great, great experience. Good for you.
Thank you.
Karen, you had a question on the other candidates before. Do you remember what that question was?
Well, it was the same question. I just wanted to.
But I'm just insisting because we want to ask the same question, as much as possible, same questions
Oh,
of
right.
each candidate.
Well, this is just a little off topic. I didn't know that the giant gingerbread house was not permitted to be where it is. So
I just heard about that this
what
weekend.
happened?
He was told that it's no longer welcome at that location.
What? Yeah, where was it?
Is this in relation to your
Yule
question
Fest.
about? Okay.
Because there's a big attraction.
So big, no one knows where it is. Which hotel? The Cork.
Oh, was it? Okay, there. Okay, okay. All right. Anyway, I just want to make sure that whoever we pick has the ability to have unrestricted creativity to really make this town just explode with the Christmas feeling, so that people do say, "Wow, we are the most Christmassy town ever." And it almost seems to me beforehand that maybe some of your creativity had been stifled a bit, because when I looked at the Christmas tree lighting and the celebration and the dancers, and year after year after year, I thought, why are those dancers to the side? Why aren't they up there in the middle of the gazebo dancing? Why is it always just FOSMA? We have Los Olivos Dance Gallery also. They're just. I'm looking for someone who can create new ideas, improve on what we have, keeping our traditions, obviously, but just make it just better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Keeping Solvang Yulefest great. Let's keep Solvang Yulefest great and improve on it.
Yeah, every year something should be plussed. I mean, everything should be plussed eventually, but I think every year you need to look at what was done and build upon it. And I think we've got a really good foundation on certain things. And I think once you get those foundations steady, that's when you can start to branch off and do new things as well. And it's almost, if you bring in too much too soon, I think it's almost like an overload. It's kind of like, well, what happened to this place? But I think if you introduce something new this year, something new the next year, and you just keep building and building and building, I think it brings people back again and again. So you got those return visitors, working in theme parks and all that. It's our annual pass holders. It's bringing those people back again and again. In Solvang, it's like, okay, we went there. That was nice during Christmas. Well, what are you going to do next year? And so I think by almost like a drip, 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 and bring it out eventually, and not to say that you can't do 2 or 3 things at once, but I think just going completely brand new on things, it's might be a little bit of a shock to the system. It's just a thought. I agree.
Well, I just feel that the Solvang Park was completely underutilized.
I agree. And also part of that was just because we're trying to be cognizant of, at the CVB, we would have been charged for damage to the lawn. So we're trying to also keep the foot traffic off of it as much as possible, because there is a huge amount of wear and tear that happens on the grass. I wish Fred was still here to talk about that. I don't know if he is.
Oh yeah, I think we're aware of that.
But yeah, because and also the candlelight tours that we had, we did. We were offering free candlelight tours, and it became a monster of an event. It was so incredibly popular. One night there, towards the end of it, I think a conservative estimate was about 600 people standing out there in the park ready to go for a candlelight tour. It's just not happening. So we ended up just doing a little song and dance, and the Clickards were there playing the accordion, and they had a great time. It was great, and everybody was singing carols. It was a great, great night. But again, it's a huge amount of foot traffic on that grass and just the wear and tear on it. So I think that is something that we're trying to be cognizant of as well. But maybe if there's something that, if you don't mind looking at during the middle of the week or doing things like that, that's breaking the chains off of, my wrist, that I can start thinking and go, okay, well, we can do this. And, so yeah, there was a lot of limitations on what I was able to go off of. I mean, the NISA adventure was practically nothing. It cost us practically nothing to do, and it was one of the biggest hits of the entire event. Kids and adults loved it, and so So getting back to it, I think being able to utilize more spaces and be free to do that would obviously bring a lot more opportunities.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to break some of those chains that have been holding back
That would be
creativity
amazing.
for this event and make it great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of your ideas, like new things that you can bring to Yule Fest to
Sure.
make it pop a little more,
Yeah.
increase midweek?
So midweek, again, like I said, I think having like that ticketed thing, it's going to help with revenue generating. It's going to help with offerings. But of course, I think to build on something that's kind of like with the NISA adventure, you can make things around town that's a little bit more interactive. I mean, I'm talking big sky. This is take my budget, throw it out the window, set it on fire, because this is now you're talking about
Please
things.
do that.
Yes, do it.
Right now, throw it out the window. Tell me what you're thinking.
All right. I think really, in today's world, in technology, it really can be utilized a lot better than what I think is happening in the city of Solvang. I think the up-and-coming generation is much more tech savvy. Even me, looking at my 4-year-old daughter, I'm like, how do you even know how to do that? But it's something that we need to be aware of and be on top of as well. So there's an experience that happens on phones. So one of the things that I was looking into once upon a time was augmented reality, and having an app with augmented reality happen throughout town. So it's almost like a scavenger hunt on your phone where you go and find certain things that are hidden around town, but when you see it on your phone, Anissa comes to life behind this tree or something, and it becomes much more interactive. So I think on a programming stance, and if you do something like that, it becomes so much more interactive. You can carry that on to something else. You could also do things with RFDI technology. One of the things that I was thinking about was for the Skull Stroll, getting wristbands for all the participants. So with their RFDI technology, when you go to each tasting room, the tasting rooms then can scan their wristbands, and they know who's gone to there. And it's a great way of just hampering down on the ticketing process.
Actually, you can do that with your phone.
Well, right, yeah, you can do it with your
QR
phone.
code.
QR codes and all that. But right now, what it was is just taking a piece of paper around, and they just sign off on it. So I mean, it's a little bit more fail-safe in terms of just control on getting things done. But the cool thing about that was when you go to those locations, and so yeah, if it's on your phone, if it's on whatever kind of ticketing system you want to do, you can then have your first of all, you get your email address on it, and the tasting notes from the wine or the glog can then be emailed to you and say, you remember you tried this wine and glog. And so for the businesses, that's a huge asset for them to be able to have that sort of connection and be able to have them say, hey, you tried this wine, remember? Why don't you buy another case for it for Christmas next week? So there's a lot of really nice marketing potentials that you could do with that. Of course, the more technology and the more tech savvy that you try to get into people's hands, the more data that you get as well, and that you're able to find out where do they live, how long have they been here, and what do they like to do. So there's a lot of things like that, and so that you can really sharpen that marketing tool and really go after the people that are going to be a higher yield, and so to speak.
And what are you going to do to get people to stay more than a few hours?
Well, so
As you know, 70% of the people who come are day trippers.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, and as a local, I've always found it frustrating that there's not a lot that happens after 5 o'clock. And I think promoting and having more things that happen at nighttime. I mean, especially during Yule Fest, it's a completely different world. And I think it's cheesy, and I'm coming from a Disney background, but I'm going to call it magical. It is a magical place to be because of all the lights all up over. I mean, I know Jeff Paskey puts it out over his restaurant, Solving Restaurant. They do a whole light thing up and down the sidewalk there. They've done it for the past several years. But to do things like that and do more of it and promote people to walk around and actually maybe bring in carolers or bring in, some sort of smaller groups, get more involvement with the schools, get more involvement with having the jazz band come out and play, in the gazebo. Or I think there's a lot more that we can do as a centerpiece in San Ynez Valley. I think that we can also reach out to other communities to help fill those holes. I think it doesn't need to necessarily, I always, and this is coming from my CVB days, where I want to say that everything should be solving. But solving, in my opinion, is the crown jewel of the valley. And I think that we can extend a hand to help the valley come here and be that showpiece for them as well. So I think by adding those events, by adding little things, people to stay later. I mean, and like I said, I would love to see an ice rink down on Copenhagen Drive. I just know how much of an insane mess that is. So I think there's a lot of things that could be done year 2, year 3. But it's a slow burn, I think, right now, especially given the time that we have. But, you know, if you got the money to do it, then you don't need that much time. I learned there's 3 things. You can have quality, time, or it was quality, time, or speed. Or, I'm sorry, money. That's it. Yep. Money, quality, or time. You can only have 2 of those things. So, you know, if you want it done fast, you can, and with quality, then you're going to, you know, it's going to cost a lot. So either way. Anyways, got it. Thank you.
One of my questions, you kind of touched on this earlier, but was around some kind of system to collect data analytics so we can send, and I know you mentioned different ideas, but do you have any particular system in mind?
I mean, other than what we do already in terms of just when people purchase a ticket, we farm out their, you know, we can get their data. I think by doing an app, a special YuleFest app, would be probably high on that list, because then it's immediate and you get to it directly. There are certain places that you know, we had looked into where it could be a web-based kind of app where they create, you know, a certain page, but you get access to their emails, their phones, they sign up for their newsletters. We can connect with them. So I think if there's an actual app and it's got the schedule of events, it's got the NISA Adventure Map, you know, it's got the augmented reality experience, it's got, that can be your QR codes for your tickets wherever you go, if it's into a light show, or if it's into a beer crawl, or if it's into you know, to go see Santa. And, you know, if we have a photographer and they want to take a photo, they just scan that QR code and they can upload it later. And on there, it's got Solvang USA right there on the bottom. You know, there's all kinds of ways that we can try and get in with that. That being said, there's also, I mean, we've tried all kinds of different ways. I'm trying to think of, like, on social media, you know, Instagram, Pinterest is all really big. So by creating like one of those banners that go up, you know, it's like, so people can flip through and they tag themselves at Solvang, California, and then they say, oh, well, here's a YuleFest little sticker that they can stick on it. My sister's in college, so I'm still pretty hip on that stuff. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Just, yes. So, I mean, I'm going to bring this back again. The Los Olivos Old Fashioned Christmas, which is a really cute, quaint event. But, you know, their shops are open at night. We've got to find a way to keep our stores open.
I agree.
You know, during certain days during YuleFest, because that's a big attraction, you know. It's nice to walk around and see things actually alive and going and lit up.
Yeah, and you know, it's actually, I'll give you one anecdote from, you know, we get all the calls of everybody calling about, you know, wanting to find out about Solvang. And one of the funniest ones I laugh at on the inside is people ask, what time does Solvang close? And they think it's a mall. They think it's a place that people can just go in and, okay, 5 o'clock, everybody out. Well, no, that's not what we are. But there's that stigma out there about it. And so I agree, we need to find a way to be able to break that and say, no, we're open for business at night, come and play. That's really what we need to look at, for sure.
Well, especially during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, agree.
Any other questions? Okay, no other questions? I think that this time we'll take public comment now, and then we'll probably take a bathroom break.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll take this to public comment. I have so far one speaker slip. Shelby Sim.
Mayor Toussaint, City Council, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My golly, you have a choice, right? This is a big choice. You go local or you go big. My gosh, and you have only a few weeks before this event starts. I believe that the folks that presented before Daniel can do exactly what they're saying and bring all this to Solvang. You know, there's a lot of traffic in Solvang already, right? We've talked about all that and how we can resolve the traffic in Solvang. Do we need that? Do we want that? Do they have the time to implement all these awesome things that they want to do? Or do we go with a local guy who's grown up here? He knows the city. He knows the locals. He knows everything that's going on. He can get the volunteers. He can get the businesses involved. You see where I'm going here. I 100% and Visit SYV 100% supports Daniel to take on Yule Fest this year. He has been handcuffed in his job. He's got incredible talents and opportunities, and but he wants to stay with Solvang. He believes in Solvang. He believes that Solvang can be it. As Councilman Clark mentioned before, we're top 10 Christmassy city in the USA. My goodness gracious, we're doing really well. And so it's not like we have to get there. We're already there. It's about staying there and improving and making better things. And I believe that Daniel can do that. He's got the relationships. He's got the know-how. He knows already Solvang, everything that's going on here and what can be done here. You have a short amount of time. And again, you have a choice. I have no doubt that the bigger companies, bigger budgets can bring exactly what you want, but not in a couple weeks. So that's what I would like to say, that we support Daniel to pull off Yule Fest this year, to bring new technology, to be able to bring the community in and to make it happen. What was brought up before by Councilman DeJernis about the Cambria and or Paso lights. The Cambria, it costs money. You have to get on a bus and go there and pay. How are we going to close off Solvang and ask people to pay money to see those lights? So it would be just an expense that the city would do. And I think it's a great thing to do, to offer to the public, to have those kind of lights would be terrific here. But you wouldn't get paid for it. We wouldn't be able to hold people out of the city. Go with somebody who knows what they're doing. Go with somebody who has the potential, has the talent. Give them an opportunity before you go to the big boys that need to learn what Solvang's all about. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I have no other speaker slips. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll take a 10-minute break.
Oh, you were the guy that said.
Yeah.
This is your trademark. I was late.
All right. I'm going to cut you guys off. We're going to adjourn the meeting. So we've heard the presentations, asked questions of the candidates. We have Pink Cadillac back on Skype here. And I guess we could start off with, we have a memo here from Katie, our PIO, and Zena. Now we've heard everyone's presentations. We've heard the responses. I guess I'd ask, staff about any pros or cons of different candidates, any insight you have.
Sure, Mayor Toussaint, council members. One of the key things to consider when looking at all of these events, and this is something that we looked at when reviewing all of the proposals, and certainly tonight has been extremely helpful, a lot of new information that wasn't included in the proposals. There's a set of key things that I always look for when hiring an event planner. I used to be an event planner for years, and then, of course, in my role as director of Visit the San Ynez Valley and other wine vintners associations, we had to do large-scale events. So I always look for what are their capabilities and their resources. So that can be something as simple as their experience, as well as what connections do they have, what resources do they have to vendors at the drop of a hat. And right now, given the short period of time that this chosen event planner is going to have to make this happen, especially with new ideas, it's going to take some really strong connections with the vendors and other community, folks. So that's something to consider, resources and capabilities. 2, what's the scope? So what scope can they pull off successfully in this short amount of time? 3, what is their knowledge on security? And that's a big thing that we didn't talk about too much. I didn't hear a lot of that today, but I did hear a lot about that in some of these referrals, these references that I called. Security is huge with what's happening in the world and at some of these festivals. And if you're talking about expanding and bringing more people to YuleFest, you really have to be careful about security. So knowledge about everything from security to crowd control to ticketing, marketing, etc. Staff management. Local compatibility is really important. So I don't think that necessarily means it has to be local, but can the firm or person that's chosen for this position work with locals? Will there be any issues there? And will the community embrace them? So you're looking at 2 issues. You're looking at the community buy-in to participate in YuleFest, to help out, to volunteer, to be a part of it. And you're also looking for community buy-in to attend YuleFest locally as well. Because as we all know, we look at locals as well as visitors for attendance. Marketing, obviously that's a big part of this. I think that's up to the council to decide the direction to take on marketing, and we've made that note in the memorandum that was sent to council, is whether or not you're looking for those marketing services to be provided by the chosen event planner or separate to another firm. And then 6, the cost and the value. We've noted before in the memo that the scope of the events are so different between the 3 proposals, and looking at the cost alone is not going to give you an idea of how much each event costs and what the value is there. So looking at the value as well. So getting into more specifics, I do have to say that the original staff recommendation has changed slightly, or actually quite a bit, due to the presentations. Thank you to all 3 of you. Terrific presentations. So first, looking at IDK events, obviously they bring a lot of experience to the table. They understand technology. They clearly have the connections to bring vendors in at the drop of a hat. I did speak with all 3 applicants, and one thing that Scott mentioned to me, he mentioned tonight, I noticed the database of 15,000 vendors that are available at the drop of a hat, to send that out and say, hey, join us at these events. And one of the things I said to him when he told me about that, I said, that's great, but don't forget local, because obviously we don't want to alienate local businesses in the community. So, and he said he has in that database section for the 805 for the Central Coast. The IDK also has a lot of sponsorship experience. I've done a lot of that work myself, and I loved the idea that both Pink Cadillac and IDK mentioned about really tailoring it to the sponsor. And that's a really important point to make. When you have a short amount of time to do this, sometimes all you can do is reach out to your contacts and go from there for the first year. And then in subsequent years, you can really start to lay out a plan and say, hey, here's what we're offering, but we also do customized packages for sponsorships. Then the other thing that I think sets IDK apart is that they do have that outside, fresh approach to this. I think it's very important to understand the politics, the community, everything that Solvang has to offer, but sometimes it is good to get that objective point of view coming into it and saying, okay, here's where I see the holes, the flaws, here's where I can help, and there's no emotions attached to it. That can be very beneficial in business and event planning. So that, I think, is a plus as well. Then looking at Pink Cadillac. So Pink Cadillac, based off the price for the amount of events that are included, if you go to the event section and on the memo, and please note that that extra event for Daniel, I want to point out that he has that extra event. But Pink Cadillac does have a huge list of additional events, and the cost is not that much more than IDK. So value-wise and for what's included, I mean, the New Year's Eve event, I'll be honest, I didn't think Kevin played this up as much as I was impressed by it, is the fireworks, entertainment, rides, petting zoo, games, skating rink that he mentioned in the proposal. So looking again at those costs. Now going back to those key components, the council really needs to decide what scope are you looking for. That's first and foremost, most important. For Pink Cadillac, I mentioned that there's 3 lead event planners within Pink Cadillac, and then they have a team of staff as well that work the events. But with one of them, Warner Anderson, I have worked with, so just personally I can attest that he is an excellent event planner. I also know that both Warner, Kevin, and Ellie have all lived in Santa Barbara County at a time, and Ellie currently is the Santa Barbara contact that's here all the time. So local, again, definitely helps. They have connections here, bringing in county-wide vendors and solutions. The New Year's Eve event, out of all 3, was the most impressive as far as bringing something new to the table. Definitely offering solutions for families. I know I've heard that from a lot of folks. And the Danish traditions. This was not mentioned, but I did want to point out that there's 2 new traditions, the Advent wreath, which is kind of a European tradition, but also St. Lucia Day. So they actually included a big event there for St. Lucia Day, which is halfway through Yule Fest. So they went ahead with this idea of everything being like halfway and involving community organizations, pet lovers, etc. Again, I think there's kind of a combination here with Pink Cadillac of that fresh approach of coming in and saying, okay, we're outside enough to see this and see potential gaps and holes, but they're also local to Santa Barbara County, which helps. Now, looking at Daniel, I have to say before, I didn't know he was going to bid until last minute, and he bid in, I think, 2 days. Quite impressive. I have heard nothing but amazing things about Daniel. I've received calls for the last several weeks, and for full disclosure, I did call Daniel prior to him bidding and said, hey, you know, the other 2 applicants that applied had asked me, are there event planners or people locally that would be an asset to us? And I immediately thought of Daniel and said, yes, Daniel. So I called Daniel to make sure he was okay with me saying Daniel. And he had showed some interest there, and then I guess after thinking about it, he decided to bid. So he, as he told me, and I think he mentioned it today, that he had added a lot of the Danish elements that currently exist in Yule Fest. So that's definitely on his mind as well. Obviously has a lot of day of experience, day of event planning experience, as well as past planning experience with Yule Fest. He's a native, is used to coming down to Solvang from AG every day, and he has some great ideas. So I would say staff recommendation as of right now is to look at IDK and Pink Cadillac for their extensive experience With IDK, I believe after hearing their presentation that they have the most resources to bring to the table today for a short period, but I believe that they would need the assistance of Daniel in order to make it a success. With Pink Cadillac, if you were just to choose one, I would say Pink Cadillac has that combination of local as well as outside experience. So looking at that, I do think Daniel is a huge asset and someone to try to bring to the table if at all possible.
Thank you. So with that, we'll take it back to the council for discussion and action. All the candidates are still available here for any additional questions that the council might have. And I guess we can have some fun talking about this. Robert, if you'd like to start.
I made a note during the meeting, IDK with Daniel's assistance or as a consultant or whatever. Kevin can do this job as good as anybody. IDK could do this job as anybody. Daniel could do this job as anybody because he's done it. And I hate to, because Kevin wasn't here, it's just a personal thing. He didn't, I mean, his presentation was wonderful. The fact that he does everything in CARP is wonderful. I don't know what it is. Everybody made the presentation. I'm a human. I just felt that IDK had a more dynamic presentation, but I somehow, being a weird person, I want Daniel involved in this, and I want to pay him to be involved in this. I think we need it because IDK might need him. If we could hire Daniel as a consultant, get IDK to take us to that next level, that I think is the best thing we could do for Solvang. I think IDK brings a lot of really important events in the past, and I think if we could somehow incorporate, and maybe this is pie in the sky, and Kevin, you could do the same thing that IDK could do because you know local as well. I just think IDK's presentation was a little bit better, a little bit cleaner, and it was more precise. And if there's any way we could possibly get Daniel, we could pay him whatever we need to pay him to bring that institutional and that historical knowledge of Solvang with IDK's expertise in doing this worldwide, then we can't lose on this. We're a council that does things not by the book. We're kind of known for that, and I think this would be a really neat thing to do. So that's my opinion.
Great, well said. I think so. I think what I'm hearing from you is that we can accomplish the best of both worlds by hiring a larger professional firm with a little more horsepower to kind of bring some of the resources that this council might be looking for to put a little more pop into YuleFest this year, while also engaging Daniel Lahr to bring new ideas, retain the existing, and bring the community together.
That's my opinion.
Basically, I think you're just suggested a partnership. Who would else like to speak?
I first of all would be interested in knowing if Daniel would even entertain that idea.
Exactly.
And if IDK would be interested in entertaining the idea of working with a consultant. So that's key for me to know in making a decision.
They're both here. We could ask that question. I would first ask Daniel.
You can keep quiet, Shelby.
I appreciate that, and I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate the fact that you trust me to be the consultant on that, and really to head up the Danish traditions and continue that torch on. That really does mean the world. I'm open to the possibility. It needs to make sense to me.
Totally understand.
I mean, you guys know my situation more than anybody else. I will say, at the end of my presentation, I said it's about my kids. And that's still true. Okay.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And Dan, I just want to let you know that we really are, I mean, it's been one of my goals. I've reached out several times to the SCB. we're trying to, look at Brenda Ball. She has a unique opportunity today. I've been looking for that same unique opportunity for you, and I think that this is just an avenue to start going down that path, and I would really love for that to happen. But of course, there are circumstances that make that difficult to happen, but I'm always happy to sit down with you. I'm looking to make that work. I'd love
I
to see
appreciate
work.
that. Thank you.
Thanks.
IDK?
Yeah, so without turning this into an episode of Shark Tank, I'm more than happy. I mean, throughout the entire chat, we were chatting back and forth, and I've candidly I've called Daniel like a debt collector for the last 2 days for exactly that reason, because I agree. I mean, this is what I've said from the moment that I got up here to talk to you guys, is that I believe our role is less to come in and disrupt than it is to steward and improve. So I think that having Daniel's expertise is certainly a key point of that stewardship. Additionally, and again, please don't take any offense to this, knowing that Daniel, we're a company. We have corporate liability insurance and professional liability insurance and cyber liability and a million insurance policies and, a corporate wrapper around us. I think that we're, it's just a different, working with municipalities, it's a different thing than what he has. That said, I'd be more than happy, I don't know what his full-time, sorry, I'm talking about you like you're not here. It's very weird. I don't know what your full-time job is, but I'd be willing, incidentally, we have an open rec for an event manager right now. Just saying, Indeed.com/IDK events. I would be willing, if the council would entertain it, I'd split it with you, looking at what his amount, I would happily pay for, give him a 6-month employment contract with IDK events. I'd split that cost with you guys based on his monthly cost that's in there. I think that gives him a little bit of stability while he tries to figure out what his next step is. We have the corporate infrastructure to easily, add him to the payroll. We have health insurance. So I mean, I'd be willing to I don't think that it's fair to the council to have to pay 100% of the cost of that consultant. And again, I might go sit down and think that was stupid, but I really don't think that you should have to pay 100% of somebody else to provide that background. I don't think that's fair to us to ask you to do. So I'd be happy, we figure out what that 6-month deal is, split it, and add that as an addendum to the contract. I'd be more than happy to do that if Daniel's willing. But you'd have to quit your day job.
Thank you.
Perfect. Karen, or Daniel, or Chris.
I think you should make the same offer to Kevin. If this is where the direction you want to go in, then you should make the same offer to Kevin.
Agreed.
I have no problem whatsoever with Daniel. As a matter of fact, I think part of what we mentioned is that we were looking for that local input for sure. And Daniel is obviously the local expert, and we'd love to work with him.
Perfect. And would you match the same offer of a split, or?
I think we would have to look at how it would break down, but whatever would be the most amenable to making that partnership work, that was going to work on an overall basis. We can sit down and go through the different steps and figure out how to make it happen right. Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
So, does anybody else want to ask questions before I do? So, for me, this comes down to who's going to be able to do this job. This is not an easy job, partly because the council doesn't know what it wants, and we're trying to feel this out as we go. That sucks for you guys, because you have to figure out how to make this happen in a very, very short period of time, and I don't envy you for that. I think that what I'm looking for is the equivalent of a general contractor, somebody who has that capability, the competency, the experience, the expertise to pull this off, to pull off multiple events, right? And to bring a variety of resources to the table, as Katie was explaining earlier. I appreciate your insight there. At the same time, I'm wondering if we can't figure out a way, if it makes sense, where there's sort of a pooling of resources, because I believe that Daniel brings something to the table. You guys obviously feel that. He sort of the repository of the local experience, right? And he can tell you perhaps where the issues are and how to avoid certain landmines and perhaps expedite certain things. Maybe he can bring some of that idea of the Danish culture that we've been trying to cultivate all these years. So in that respect, I can see the value there. I don't think he has the ability to be the general contractor, as we're discussing here tonight. I love the fact that IDK has tremendous depth and experience, especially with respect to that digital platform, for lack of a term. I'm trying to use something that I can relate to, but from that digital platform, you're able to do targeted advertising and promotion, and through social media and that kind of thing. And in this day and age, that's key to the success of any event. I was a little disappointed, unfortunately, with Kevin. I think Kevin can do it too, but he didn't speak to that as much. And so I appreciate that difference, that distinction there. At the same time, I think that Kevin has done these types of events. For example, the event down in Hollywood, I think I would love to have seen that. I wish you could have given us something, to visualize what you had accomplished there, because I think that must have been an amazing event. And so from that standpoint, and then of course the list of things that you had suggested that you could do, I love that idea. So if I could figure out a way to incorporate you into the solution, I would love to take all three of you, put you in the room, try to figure out how do we make this work, because I think every one of you brings something really powerful to the table. Now, I understand there is going to be some overlapping costs in terms of administration, things like that, that are some redundancies that probably make it prohibitive. But if we could figure out a way to make that happen, I would be very much in favor of that. And maybe it's as simple as IDK takes care of the first half of the month and Kevin takes care of the last half of the month. I don't have the answer, but I'd love to see something where we can really make this month-long celebration into something that everybody is excited about and can't wait to come back to the following year. And if that takes 3 different groups to pull it off, I'm all for it.
Very kumbaya.
Sounds very costly, too.
Well, that's the question. What are the costs involved? Because maybe there's a way to do this. I don't know. For example, let's say Kevin knows how to pull off the Cambria Lights thing, and IDK doesn't. What are we going to do? But IDK knows the digital platform, and Kevin
I think
doesn't.
we're stretching it, though.
Karen?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are in a crunch right now. So I think we need a big bang for our buck with the extensive knowledge from Daniel as a consultant for keeping Danish heritage very, very alive and present in our Yule Fest. So I would make a motion to hire IDK with the acceptance of Daniel Lair as their consultant for the Danish history and traditional aspects of this to keep that alive. And I do have full faith that Daniel Lair probably could pull this off on his own, but having the ability to bring in people, boom, 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 to get it done, we are at such a crunch that I think we really need to pull in a big company that can just get it done for us with his help.
Great. Now, before we start making motions, I'd also like to hear from Daniel and dial things up a little bit. But
I agree with what's been said. It seems like these are all great ideas. We just have to decide, what's the best for the next 3 months. And I think either Kevin or IDK could do the job with Daniel's help. And I do feel Daniel needs to be incorporated into it. I'm amazed IDK's basically offering him a job for 6 months. I thought that's pretty neat. Obviously we're going to be involved in that, but that's an amazing opportunity. I don't know how we're going to decide, actually. So I haven't heard any great decisions yet.
Let me suggest something. Unfortunately, I don't want to do this on the fly, but we're being forced to do this. In terms of, I think the distinction would be in terms of the business model, because I know that IDK had suggested some type of revenue share. And I think the same.
That was my next question, actually, was we had, I believe IDK was around 100,000.
Well, I'm not worried about the cost per se, because I know it's going to go up if we decide on a certain.
I'm asking those first as about the business model, backing into it, that's all.
All right, but I'm sorry.
But, yeah, I just think it's good for us to know. But you have IDK that came in around.
IDK was at 100,000, but without specifics of what events. that
With a
includes.
revenue split.
Or the revenue split, the way they suggested originally in the RFP, was 80% of sponsorship would go to the city and 70% of the ticket sales. But during the presentation, they alluded that they would be potentially flexible to increase that to 100%.
Right. Okay. And then with Pink Cadillac, I believe it was 122,000, but then all revenue coming back to the city.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So how do they define revenue? Because
I'm just
anything above 122.
Can I just get some basic facts first?
But the events are also a little bit different too, as well. So.
Right.
And
So
that's the thing. We need apples to apples comparison.
So then with Daniel Lahr, it was 62,000 with revenue coming back to the city.
Correct.
Okay. So I think another appropriate conversation to have is about what kind of events or ideas this council would like to see. I think each one of I asked earlier of Katie, was each one of the candidates met the specific event requirements that we were asking for. So am I hearing that anything above the specific event requirements is going to be additional cost?
No. The additional events that are included in their proposal are underneath those costs. So for instance, Pink Cadillac had a pretty lengthy list. I think it was about a handful of extra events included in their 122,000. And I know that IDK included a website as well as at least one additional event. And then all of them have expressed interest. All three of them expressed interest to me on doing a Christmas market that was not included. Only Daniel included that in his proposal.
Yeah, I think that's also why I like the idea of a partnership with Daniel in this, because it kind of brings the whole thing together. But I think we should have a little further discussion around some of the different events that were proposed in the three that we have here, and get some council consensus on ideas we really would like to see here, so we kind of know our path moving forward and give some good direction to any one of the candidates here.
I just wanted to note, somebody said comparing apples to apples. In order to do that, you would need to line that up, and that's why this list is in here, so you can compare them.
And what you're saying is really technically not the purpose of the meeting, is it? To actually get, to go over the entire itinerary of events tonight?
Yeah, I'm almost.
I think you should review some of those and just put some kind of, do you want that or not? I mean, some kind of direction here.
Everything's negotiable.
Yeah, I think the issue is we got to find a company, because I think you can change those events as the planning gets going even more. As they meet with Daniel and as they ferret that out, stuff can change and fluctuate a little bit. So I get what you're saying.
I'm trying to think in terms of budget.
Yes,
as well.
I get it.
So
We have the right to say no.
And expectations. I don't want us approving something here, and then I hear later on, I'm not happy because, oh God, this one was the most important to me and it didn't happen. That's what I'm trying to avoid here. Is
do we have council consensus that we? From what I've heard, that we don't want to give the contract to Daniel. We're more interested in him being a consultant, because then we can take that right off the table, so we don't even have to compare that.
Well, I think I heard all five of us be very supportive of a partnership between the two, and I believe we have two. I think Pink Cadillac as well as IDK. We're both open to that kind of relationship.
Okay. With Daniel as a consultant, not running the event. That's why I'm trying to pull his off, so that we have two we can talk about instead of three, if that's what the council wants. That's what I'm wondering.
So Kevin, you said something here, sorry, in our packet, that you felt for the money that you were going to charge that you could fit in fireworks and a petting zoo and a skating rink?
Yes. Yeah, those costs were all included in the event breakdown for that.
Fireworks are $50,000.
Daylight.
I know,
fireworks are
you're
a little
right.
bit different.
I'm sorry, say it again, Kevin?
Daylight.
Yeah.
Daylight.
And we wouldn't be doing as, it's not going to be as extensive a fireworks show as on the 4th of July, but that cost was based on my conversation with the company.
Okay.
So you could do that. You could actually,
Yes.
it would include, okay, and that would be for December 31st?
Yes.
At 3 p.m.
See, that's the kind of distinction I'm thinking about, because
That's why I'm asking for us to review some of what is included in these scopes here, because you're talking about,
Which is why I want an apples-to-apples comparison.
Right.
Right. So I'm willing to table this, give everybody a chance to, let's
I-
figure out what we want, give them another 24 hours to work on this.
That is not a bad idea, actually. I think a lot of stuff has come out now that we've talked about, and maybe that would be better for these companies. I mean, no, I don't want to, but
Well, that's why I was thinking, I wonder if it might make sense for Kevin, for example, to do the back half of the month and IDK does the first half.
I don't think they'll want to do that. Doesn't make sense to expend all that energy for half.
Okay, then my motion dies for a lack of a second. Just want to put that in there.
well, I said earlier I didn't want to entertain motions yet. There was no second, so it never really.
Are we ready for a motion again?
I mean, you can make a motion. I'd say I really don't want to start calling special meetings over and over. It's now 9 o'clock tonight. You're not going to call a special meeting now.
Okay, Karen made a motion.
So the soonest you'd have a special meeting is Wednesday, and we keep getting closer and closer to running out of time. And then also,
What I'm
you
suggesting.
could start scaring potential candidates off.
Well, we only have two.
Here's a,
I'm sorry, what was
the motion was Karen's to pick IDK with Daniel as a consultant to be negotiated between those two in the city. We'll get to that. So IDK with Daniel as a consultant. Karen made the motion. I'm seconding it right now.
Okay.
Well, I have a problem with that because I'm trying to understand, can IDK do what Kevin's doing? I don't know. We haven't even had a chance to ask him.
Okay.
So if you make the second, then we stop talking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can make another motion, or we can take the vote, and
We
if
have to
there's
vote and then-
3 votes, then we keep going.
Okay.
Or you can make a substitute motion, you can make a new motion, you can.
I don't know how to make a motion. Mr. Attorney, would you please explain to me how I can make a motion that would allow me to, at this point in time, ask IDK if they can do what Kevin's doing?
Let's just entertain the question and then come back to the motion that's on the floor. Is that
I would
possible?
just ask the chair if you would allow Councilmember Dearness to ask his one
That's what I was
question
just saying.
before you.
Yeah, so, ask your question.
I need him to come up. Thank you. So one of the things that catches my attention is the idea of fireworks at the end of the month. Is that something that you can do?
Yes, we can do fireworks. We left it out of our proposal because we were sensitive to the recent fires. So it's just something that we didn't think to do, and we liked the idea of the Christmas tree burn as like that pyro bookend. But if that's something the council wants and we're selected to be the vendor, then we can include that in our SOW during the final negotiation. To his point, daylight fireworks are not prohibitively expensive.
Thank you. And what about a skating rink?
Yeah, same thing there. Depends on what you want to do. To Daniel's point, ice skating rinks are incredibly expensive. There is a polymer with like an oil on it that mimics an actual ice skating rink that's fairly inexpensive. And there's operators that'll bring those in and kind of operate it. Again, I can, I'm happy to look at what that would be. To not to put too fine a point on it. Our proposed pricing includes a roughly $26,000 management fee. The rest of it is basically pass-through expenses. So how we kind of chop up those expenses during the build-out of the SOW, we can do.
Actually, that was the most important point right there. Kevin, since I've got you here too,
Yes.
do you have a similar model where you have like a management fee and then everything else is on top of that?
Yes.
And unfortunately, I have papers all over my desk. What is your management fee?
Well, ours was management fee, but also in that number, as I have it at the moment, I included all the staffing cost for the different events. So construction crew. So it's actually, yeah, I mean, it's 42,000, but that's including a lot of staff costs.
Right.
That's the elves for Santa's Village. That's all of those things as well. So it's not just the management fee. I don't have that broken out separate.
And you have the same challenge because you didn't put that in, did you?
I did. It's in our RFP. We put kind of day of staff. I think it was a $10,000 number based on the events that we were proposing, which was just that baseline of events. So again, it was my understanding from the RFP that once a vendor was selected, there would be a like sort of a contract negotiation period where we could flesh out the final SOW, and I anticipated kind of building that stuff in. I don't know if I misunderstood that or not.
No, I think that actually makes a lot of sense, and I wish I'd heard that too. Kevin's shaking his head thinking he saw the same
That
thing.
was my understanding as well, that these were proposed costs, but there were final decisions that were going to need to be made, and there was a lot more information, to be honest, on some of these events that would need to be gained in order to really lock down the costs.
Mr. Mayor, I think you've reached the kind of the
Yes.
point of
So,
just asking a question.
So, Karen, you had a motion. You've heard some new information. Would you like to keep your same motion?
I would like to keep my same motion.
Robert, are you seconding Karen's motion?
Yes.
It's been moved and seconded.
Councilmember Wade,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Dearness,
I have a problem with this. I feel like I need more time. I don't know how to answer this.
I vote no.
Just say no if
Vote no or
you
abstain.
want to discuss more.
I'll abstain for the moment.
Okay.
Councilmember Johnson,
I'm going to say no, just to the fact that Chris wants to discuss it more.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes. Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you, Kevin. Sorry about that.
3. Oh, I'm sorry. 3-1, 1 abstention.
3-1-1.
Yes.
Thank you,
3-1-1.
Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. With that, I believe we are adjourned.